Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
No timeouts left for the AFC.
One more snap.
Peyton saying they got to throw it.
Here we go.
Somebody knows a bylaw in this rule book.
He said I can take a knee. That's a penalty. You can't do that. You can't run. He said I can take a knee. That's a penalty. It's not the fact.
Peyton furious with his Pac-12 official.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm really not sure that it's a good sign that even the Pro Bowl flag football game came down to refereeing controversies at the end. How much help does the NFC need? If I'm being honest, I actually watched a decent amount of the Pro Bowl games over the course of Pro Bowl week. And look, it's not great right now. But I admired what they were trying to do. I like the idea. I like watching, just linemen throwing water balloons at each other, trying not to let them pop, being followed by real NFL street energy from the flag football elements of it all. I, as a firm believer that NFL Street 2 is the greatest video game ever invented, specifically the GameCube version. I kind of liked the itch that the Pro Bowl games scratched. It was like NFL players being put in a mix of like American Ninja Warrior and maybe a little bit of Wipeout and then some Olympic sort of stuff. It could use some revising. I hope they keep iterating on the Pro Bowl games. But I at least admire the direction they're headed in. And yeah, we got a little refereeing controversy. We got one more Derek Carr interception in Vegas. As we played for you on Friday, we got one great zinger from Derek Carr. We play that on Friday, right? Ever been this locked in Vegas? Not this locked in. Probably I'm going somewhere else. I mean, just some good drama, some silliness, and no serious injuries. Who hasn't dislocated a toe playing flag football? Most of us? All right, well, fair enough. Was that even in the game? That might have been from one of the other festivities. I'm not sure how seriously that all shook out. But I enjoyed the majority of what we got from the Pro Bowl games, and I hope that you will enjoy at least the majority of what you'll get here in this edition of The Zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson right now is on his way to Phoenix, and boy, are his arms tired. I'm Joshua Brisco over here by myself on this side of the glass. Beards McFly on the other side. And yeah, we made it.
I wish you were all by yourself right now.
It's good to be able to see you, Beards. I can see Beards when I'm in the other chair, but I got to kind of turn around, and usually I'm just locked in on Jason, just trying to be a really active listener, nodding, thinking, scratching my chin, taking copious amounts of notes. But now Beards and I can see each other again. It's dangerous. Because I just look up and then I can see him playing Cookie Clicker or whatever.
Not right now.
I didn't. That wasn't a real accusation. But anyway, Jason's on his way to Radio Row. We're going to have a really fun week of shows. I'm not going to start teasing guests that, we have lined up because Radio Row is a hectic place, but I will say I know what the rundown looks like as of right now, and I think we're going to have a real interesting parade of guests, both to cover the Super Bowl that, yes, the Kansas City Chiefs are playing in, and just all the sights and sounds you get from Radio Row, but specifically when the Chiefs are in the big game. I think we're going to have a really fun week once we get Jason plugged in from Arizona coming up again Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. We're going to have Jason out there. Plus, tonight will be the big media night for the Chiefs and the Eagles. And so we'll have Jason and some more members of the 810 crew out there getting the sights and sounds of what it looks like to fill up an arena with a bunch of podiums and players walking around, and what kind of conversations is Jason going to find himself wrapped up into? Will he find Michael Burton out there? Will we have some fullback beef? Maybe we get a little a Marcus Kemp reunion with Jason. I think that would be great. I'm guessing they would both really appreciate that opportunity. We'll see who it is that ends up being. He's talked many times about how good Colin Saunders was down in Miami. I'm just genuinely interested to figure out who it's going to be that we kind of get a new side of, as a lot of these guys will be out there just able to be talked to in a way that they typically aren't on a week-in, week-out basis throughout the NFL season. So excited to hear what all of that's going to turn into for the rest of the week on the show. But we made it, friends. We did it. We made it through one more labored journey, hiking up the mountain through this NFL season. We made it through what used to be my least favorite week of the NFL season, especially whenever the Chiefs weren't in it. That Pro Bowl week where maybe you got to see if, Dwayne Bowe was going to do anything in the Pro Bowl, or maybe you get a cool, maybe Tamba Hali gets some extra decoration, Derek Johnson, or go farther back and come up with a lot more. Just, Tony Gonzalez's February is pretty open once again. Cool. At least he gets to go to Hawaii, I guess. But even going back to Chiefs-Niners, not all that long ago, there was a lot of sort of tension in that week from the AFC Championship game to the Super Bowl, because it was also the least actively going on. Now, last week for us around here was pretty busy because we were able to talk about everything from the win over the Bengals through the concerns about the injury status of a lot of these guys. And I believe that we won't get a true, honest-to-God practice report injury update until Wednesday, which will be interesting. That's typical for your Sunday games throughout the season. But it'll be interesting to see if we see any big steps forward, specifically for the pass catchers who are banged up, Juju Smith-Schuster and Kadarius Toney, the main ones, because it seems very unlikely that McCole Hardman's going to be able to make the turnaround from the AFC Championship game to the Super Bowl. But we made it here again. And look, there are a lot of big storylines and smaller storylines that I want to talk about over the course of this week. There are specific matchups that I am ecstatic for. We had the 8-10 O's on Sunday Sound Off last night. It was Brisco, Lebo, Petro. I made the joke on TV if anyone wasn't watching, which I imagine everyone was watching, because who wouldn't be watching? But I made the joke on TV that it was like Aaron Ladd had decided he was going to get together the Avengers of 8-10 personalities whose last names sound like they could be cereals. Beards, I'll ask you this question.
Which one of those sounds the worst to eat?
Well, that's exactly. I was going to ask you which one sounds the best, because I said, just to say one, that I think I'd get a box of Lebos if I saw them on the shelf, but I'm not sure that's true. Petros sounds like that could be a dog food kind of thing, I guess. That's because it's a pet, I guess. I don't know. Brisk is a nice, a fall temperature.
See, Briscoes to me are just they're just going to be nothing but sugar.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just sugar. Lebo sound like they've got some.
Because I'm so sweet, Beards. Oh, because of the diabetes.
Lebo sound.
Oh, you meant because of the diabetes.
Lebo sound like they've got some fiber to them.
That's true.
A little more healthier.
That's true.
I don't know what to do with Petros.
I think Petros might actually be. That's like the all-round winning cereal. That's a cereal you can eat when you're 12. It's a cereal you can eat when you're 30. You know. That one really stands the test of time. This isn't even like a psychoanalysis of how long Surin's been really good at radio, which also would be a long time. I'm just going purely off the name alone. I think Lebos do sound like a health cereal, though. Yeah. That's probably true. I would recommend if someone wants to Photoshop the box art, maybe that would help. Maybe it's sort of a monster cereal thing, a Count Chocula, Frankenberry, Boo Berry. Do I get to be? Can I be? I'm Count Chocula there, right? It seems like I feel like I have to be. I don't know what that means for the other guys, but I'm claiming Count Chocula.
You suck the insulin out of people.
Let's take a break. Next 3 hours and 45 minutes, it's The Zone with Beards McFly. As I was saying, I don't remember why I mentioned the sound off and making the joke last night and all of that. Because we started by going through like our big storylines that we were most interested in from this game. And I think there are a bunch. Gosh darn it, I'm going to make time to talk about the rookie corners and the rookie defensive backs altogether because I want to include Brian Cook in that. I'm going to make sure we talk about Steve Spagnuolo today and the defense today. Last night on Sound Off, it was sort of a tongue-in-cheek. I'm just excited to find out if Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in football or not, because we're kind of living in this world where every head-to-head matchup for Patrick Mahomes is getting treated like a boxing match where like one dude is no longer undefeated. He's unconscious on the mat, and the other guy's now holding the belt, despite the fact that that's clearly not how this works. Patrick Mahomes was the best quarterback in football after he lost to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl also. He's had one bad half of noteworthy football. AFC Championship game last year. He was the best quarterback in football after that also. Joe Burrow has also had bad halves of football, but when Patrick Mahomes does it, it's a total outlier. So you've got the Mahomes narratives, and I do think that this is going to matter in legacy and the next 6 months of conversation this offseason. You've got the Kelsey brothers. You've got Andy Reid versus his old team. You've got two black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl for the first time in NFL history. Two tremendous quarterbacks who are also both banged up going into this game. You've got these rookie defensive backs against, I'm just saying this kind of off the top of my head, so don't take it too seriously, but maybe the second best duo of wide receivers in the NFL, behind the duo the Chiefs just stood up to last week. There's some other good options there. I'm not saying that it's got to be Bengals 1, Eagles 2. But if you said, hey, you can have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, or you can have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, I have to think that almost every team in football would say, we will take that duo of wide receivers over our current duo, whoever that may be for that team. You've got great storylines and great matchups. But the one thing that I wanted to make sure we kicked off the week with is that the biggest storyline for you, assuming you are a Chiefs fan listening to this, safe assumption, the most important thing for you to know is that they are back here again. And I know that at this point, it's become almost cliche to be like, hey, don't take Patrick Mahomes for granted. But don't you take Patrick Mahomes for granted. Hey, don't take Andy Reid and this Chiefs organization for granted. But don't you take Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and this Chiefs organization for granted. Seriously. I know you've heard it a lot. I know we're all telling you to eat your vegetables. There are people older than me who have been around more bad football than I have, who are even more passionate about this than I am. But I remember what it was like to, if not literally, figuratively, and frankly, maybe literally, pray that Damon Huard would be the answer. And the element of it with this version of the Chiefs team, and it's interesting to start to see some of the national perspectives on it now that the Chiefs are all the way back to the Super Bowl again. It's kind of interesting for the media to come back around on a national level, who saw everything the Chiefs did this offseason with Tyreek Hill, who knew they still had Patrick Mahomes, and I really don't think that the vast majority of national media types were calling for the Chiefs' downfall. If you wanted to say a lot of them were picking the Chargers to win the division, and that's fine. The reason that we can say, I can't believe Bart Scott said the Chiefs wouldn't get back to the playoffs is because he was a little bit on an island there, being kind of a contrarian for the sake of it. So this isn't some like, everyone's just realizing the Chiefs are good. That's not the case. But it's interesting to see the national perspective come back around and gain a new appreciation for what the Chiefs have done this year. Because look, by week, 2 or 3, on the postgame show, some of you were calling in, and I thought reasonably, saying, hey, how long are we going to have to say Tyreek Hill XYZ in relation to everything the Chiefs do? And I hope you understand my direction on this, the point of bringing up Tyreek Hill here on the Monday before the Super Bowl that he's not playing in, but the Chiefs are. I don't mention him now in the context that I think a lot of you were frustrated with in the offseason and early in the season, because, hey, again, I get it. A lot of that narrative was, oh, man, the Chiefs just shipped off Tyreek Hill. Boy, this offense is going to take a step back, really opens things up for the Chargers. Bart, what do you think? Oh, I don't think the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs at all. What? Wait, hold on. Whoa, hey, calm down. Now we've gotten too far. No. That was just a reference for Beards and big Liam Neeson fans. I'm mentioning Tyreek Hill now, today on February 6th, because it really is remarkable. It just really is remarkable. The whole thing. Going back to the offseason where you were starting to get excited about, oh, how could the Chiefs add another piece around Tyreek Hill? You're starting to see the offense kind of take shape. And then those rumors start, and it feels like 6 hours later, he's a Dolphin. So what do the Chiefs do? Well, they end up with Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and then Justin Watson ends up getting a huge role. They later trade for Kadarius Toney. He ends up kind of stepping in right as, unfortunately, Mecole Hardman, who's having a great season, he gets hurt. We now know that more or less ended his year, save for a really nice big catch or two in the AFC Championship game that gives you a nice potential send-off if he is done as Chief, but really unfortunate timing there. They traded away Tyreek Hill and lost Mecole Hardman mid-season. And they were the best offensive football anyway. Now, this is grading on a very silly scale because he was the best tight end in football once again this year. But it wasn't any more on Travis Kelce's shoulders than it's been in years past. Not statistically speaking, right? Almost 1,400 yards receiving is amazingly not his highest receiving total ever. He caught 1 billion touchdowns, 12 of them, in fact. Most of those coming earlier in the year, though, as the offense continued to evolve and find its identity. Travis Kelce was clearly number one with a bullet as a pass catcher in this offense. This is clearly the 1-2 punch. It's Mahomes and Kelce continue to make this thing run, obviously. Andy Reid being the third part of that offensive holy trinity, and if you want to make him the first part, that's whatever. But Travis Kelce was spectacular. But it's not like he ended up with 150 catches this year. He ended up with 110. It was 105 back in 2020, just for a comparison. Last year it was 92. Relatively similar to his usage in the Patrick Mahomes era, even without Tyreek Hill out there. Offense ends up humming. You get close to 1,000 yards from Juju Smith-Schuster, even with his injury issues. MVS ends up having his biggest game as a Chief in the biggest game he played in as a Chief up to this point. Even without Sky Moore, really being a part of it. Even without Mecole Hardman in the back half of the regular season. Even when Kadarius Toney's moments have been moments and not games, because that's sort of been the flow of his career, frankly, to this point. Really hope he's healthy for the Super Bowl. But the offense keeps humming because it's Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce. I probably could have run some routes and the offense would have been just fine because of those three guys. The other side of the football is so intriguing to me now. And I know it's crazy because I really do think that we could do 4 hours of radio 5 days a week, 365 days a year, just talking about Reid, Mahomes, and Kelce. I feel like that is within our capabilities because, man, it really is special on about 1 million different levels. But they used their new draft capital and also build up their draft capital even before the Tyreek Hill trade a little bit, right? They doubled down there, and we had all these conversations leading up to the draft. Oh, the Chiefs can't use all these picks. Well, they used a lot of them. And here's what they got. They got a tremendous rookie cornerback, and they traded up and got Trent McDuffie, who fell further than they expected, jumped the Bills. They end up with Kerry Elam, who's been fine. But, man, Trent McDuffie's been excellent. But he's missed some time this year. Despite that, still been excellent. With their original pick, they get an edge rusher who started every game in his rookie season, George Karlaftis. After that, they trade back and end up with Sky Moore. Not the regular season you wanted from him in any form. Has a big game out of necessity in the AFC Championship game. Huge credit for that. Huge props for that. We talked about kind of the story of him getting to that point. His conversation with Stephen St. John in the locker room after the AFC Championship game. Tremendous story, but not some great regular season production by any means whatsoever. Brian Cook, a rookie defensive back, thrust into action when L'Jarius Sneed goes out. Justin Reed's got to play up a little more. Brian Cook now is playing more deep safety. One of the best plays you'll see all year, and the interception he forced in the AFC Championship game. Leo Chanel, we were stoked about Leo Chanel. But we also thought he might be kind of raw. Wasn't quite ready yet. Cool. Got some work this season. Not a ton. No biggie. Joshua Williams in the 4th round. All but started against the Bengals. Stood up there with T. Higgins. I don't know how often he ended up on Jamar Chase. But just went out there and played good football despite being behind 7th round pick Jalen Watson after Watson was able to kind of win that job pretty outright. He's been spectacular. Not just for a 7th round pick. I mean, he hasn't been Trent McDuffie, who's been so good that we're not talking about him, because that's generally a compliment to corners. If you're good enough, you're not getting targeted, so you're not actually getting the conversations. Jalen Watson's been stupendous. Darian Kennard in the 5th round, project, TBD. Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th, I can save my breath. We all love Isaiah Pacheco, and justifiably so. Dude is electric to watch. 251st overall pick. And then Najee Johnson, a few picks later, ended up on the active roster, playing special team snaps. Frankly, at this rate, I just kind of trust the Chiefs coaching staff to develop their young defensive backs in ways that can turn them into useful players, even when they're drafted in the 200s. Now, look, I can put a really big red mark on Brett Veach's GM history by going back to the 1st round in 2020. And I had, and in some ways still have, mixed feelings on Nick Bolton, the 1st pick last year. But I'm going to keep going through the rookie classes here for just a second. Because even if Nick Bolton isn't a modern world consumer at linebacker, you know what he is? Pretty good Mike. Fast processor, gets the calls out, good for the defense. Cool. Creed Humphrey, Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber center. Trey Smith in the 6th round in 2021, Pro Bowl caliber guard. Rookie contracts. Every name I mentioned from this year's draft class, those guys are all obviously in the 1st year of the rookie deals. Nick Bolton and Creed Humphrey and Noah Gray as your 2nd tight end, and Trey Smith, all in the 2nd year of their rookie deals right now. This team's paying Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes a lot of money. And I think that's going to continue next year and for years to come. That's really hard to be able to do. Guys don't win the Super Bowl taking up that large of a percentage of the salary cap very often. The Chiefs are in line to do that. And one of the reasons, if not the biggest reason that's on the table, is because of how good and cheap so many other pieces of this team have been. I said this post-game. I said it last week. I'm going to say it all week long to anyone who asked me about how this team got built. But everything the Chiefs have shown you throughout the course of this season, and now as we're sitting here talking about a game still to be played in February, It is a three-pronged success story. It is coaching, it is scouting, it is the players playing. And you need those kind of successes to be back in the Super Bowl as often as the Chiefs have made a habit of it out of the Patrick Mahomes era. It's tremendous that they're back to this spot. And you shouldn't take Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes or any of it for granted. But understanding the moving pieces coming together in this way, I think, is a really spectacular thing. I want to talk more about the defensive backs. We also have a great lineup of guests on today's show as well. Kent Swanson of the KC Sports Network at 11, Field Yates of ESPN at noon, and Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 already in Phoenix. He'll join us at 1. So we'll talk about a bunch more football today, figure all the local college basketball teams. Maybe we just come up with a pact today. None of us talk about any of them. We just go full football. Nobody has to get drugged through the mud. Just an offer. I'm putting it out there. We'll talk more football, maybe a little other here and there throughout the rest of the zone as well. Joshua Brisco, Beards McFly, Jason Anderson's in the air or on the way or maybe in Arizona. We should ask him. Radio Row starts tomorrow. Today it's me and Beards in the Zone.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to try to progressively make this show a little more unlistenable every day, which is a pretty tall task.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Sometimes you just start talking about the right thing, and then more stuff falls into your lap. Seeing some snippets here from an article of Albert Breers on SI.com about how the Chiefs have built their team around Patrick Mahomes as they've shifted into this new era after his rookie contract. I swear I didn't see this before the show started. Looks like the tweet about it went out at like 9:30. I was working on other stuff. I was show prepping. But a couple of little tidbits here that our friend Nick Jacobs over at KSHB41 just tweeted out some screenshots from. Just think it's interesting as we're here talking about how the Chiefs rebuilt or just kept building around Mahomes and where the team is right now. So here's a tidbit from Albert Breer. That's why when the Jets offered the 10th pick straight up for Hill, the Chiefs balked and asked for a package based on volume rather than quality picks to try to avoid being the team that got Troy Williamson for Randy Moss. It's also why the Chiefs eventually settled on a package offered from the team Hill wanted to go to, the Dolphins. Miami would send the Chiefs the 29th pick, as well as a second-rounder, 2 fourth-rounders, and a 2023 sixth-rounder, a package they took over a reworked Jets offer fronted by New York's 2 second-rounders. Quote, if there are guys that may not have as high of an athletic ceiling as others, but you just know deep down these guys are really good players, we'll feel good just wanting to make sure we're surrounding Pat with really good guys that are really good players, Brett Veach says. Quote, and we want to make sure that at the end of the day, they're going to value the game, be great teammates, and these guys aren't going to come here and fail. And look, yes, maybe some guys have a way higher ceiling, but we're not in that place. We're going to get guys in here that want to play, that love the game, and that we know are going to be good players as well. So I think you probably want to see it almost mirror your free agent approach and your approach with trading picks with a quarterback on a rookie deal. I just think this is really interesting. We knew a lot about the Dolphins and Jets having their dueling offers, and I don't think we've heard that the Jets offered number 10 overall straight up. And when you say, like, hey, so the Chiefs could have swapped out Tyreek Hill and added in Garrett Wilson, that might have been kind of nice. And hey, it would have been kind of nice. I get it. That might be the more in the Beards McFly theory of like, hey, if this offense gets one of those guys, though, like one of those like young wide receivers who's kind of a space alien. Garrett Wilson's a different type of space alien than your Justin Jeffersons or Jamar Chases, but bit of a space alien. Would not have hated that.
It'd be okay.
And I'm not 100%. I was reading up on this during the break and, doing a few other things, so forgive me if my back of the napkin math isn't great. I feel sort of like that 10th overall pick is probably a little more valuable than what they ended up getting from the Dolphins, like if you're going to try to trade one for the other. But that one we can get our little scalpel out later and really try to dissect that one. But from a philosophical standpoint, I think this is the right strategy. I'm seeing a lot of people on Chiefs Twitter who I like and have good opinions about things that seem to kind of disagree with the idea. And again, I get it. I do. You want to just have Garrett Wilson, and that would be awesome. But what we just ended up talking about for the first half hour of this show is that by having more shots to take in the draft, and look, yeah, the quality of the shots that you take certainly matters. If you're throwing darts, there are some people who are way better at darts than others. So you got 32 NFL teams, all of them are throwing darts, just for the sake of the metaphor. It's not perfect, but it's okay, because you can get pretty good at darts. Some people are better at it than others. You can practice. You can have years of experience throwing darts. You can believe in your ability, but sometimes it's going to leave your hand wrong. Sometimes you're aiming the wrong spot. Sometimes you just tried aiming for the going a little too specific, going for the bullseye or whatever the little strip of a dartboard is that's worth more than the bullseye. I'm not a huge darts guy.
Sometimes you trade up for Brisco and Speaks.
And then so the quality of the draft picks, never on the ground, Beards. You said his name first, so I'll say the catchphrase.
Thank you.
Sometimes the quality of the draft pick, in my analogy here, is changing how far away you are from the dartboard. If you've got the number 1 overall pick, you are standing as close to the board as you'd like. You're 3 feet away from the board. You could reach out and stick it into the board yourself if you want. Now, sometimes you're gonna be there 3 feet, you're gonna throw it, and it's just gonna bounce right off the board and hit the ground because you drafted Jamarcus Russell. But more often than not, if you've got the number 1 overall pick, the Chiefs had the number 1 pick in a draft class. They were 5 feet from the board. They threw it, and they got a good value, and they took Eric Fisher. Got a nice number of points. Again, I don't know all the scoring in darts, okay? But would you rather have, in this imperfect analogy, fewer dart throws closer to the board, or more dart throws, more darts in your hand, further back? And specifically when you're the Chiefs, if you're looking for a quarterback, you want to have the biggest, best dart you can as close to the board as possible, and you really need to make sure you hit the bullseye with that one. But the Chiefs did. The Chiefs did a little behind-the-back dart throw in 2017. It was a bullseye that went through the board. It was like Robin Hood. It split another dart with its dart. They got Patrick Mahomes. They nailed it. The other advantage you have by having more darts a little further away. I'm not saying trade your first pick for all of your 7ths you can get, although the Chiefs' 7th-round draft picks have been extremely good. So maybe this is actually the strategy. But when you move back from the board and give yourself more darts to throw, you have more guys in your rotation. You're filling out your depth now with a third. Right now, the Chiefs' 4th linebacker is a 3rd-round rookie from this year's draft class, Leo Chanel. Now, somebody else might move on, somebody else might get hurt, and you move up the depth chart a little bit, but you're filling out the depth chart with more quality pieces than just a bunch of undrafted free agents that you're just not that sure about. When you've already got the best tight end of all time, the best quarterback currently living, and the best defender in the AFC, I went pretty safe on those 3, I felt like. And one of the greatest offensive minds in the history of football. When you have all of that, you need to make sure the rest of your roster is there to play complementary football. Raise the water levels altogether. Mike Dana has become really important here. If Mike Dana is not on this roster, you've got someone else stepping in at a replacement level kind of production. You don't want to go full superstars and XFL players. And so I just think that that's an interesting little peek into the psyche there from Brett Veach as to what was going down from the Tyreek Hill trade that we started talking about with today's show, and I didn't even know we were about to get another fun tidbit from Albert Breer. So I have not read that full story yet because it came out as I was getting ready for the show, and I'll do some light reading afterwards today, but some interesting stuff there on SI.com if you want to check that out, and some interesting stuff still coming up on The Zone the rest of the way today. Joshua Brisco, Beards McFly with you as Jason Anderson is on his way to Arizona. We'll hear him on Radio Row starting tomorrow, but in the meantime, Kent Swanson to KCSN in about 15 minutes. Field Yates and Mick Shaffer still to come as well. It's The Zone here getting ready for a little Super Bowl action. Super Bowl week is here. Usually, I hate Mondays. Today, not the case, because it's a Super Bowl Monday. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
We're here for a one-on-one interview with our friend Travis Kelce. Travis, I know you listen to a lot of Almost Entirely Sports. What do you think about Joshua Brisco and Beards McFly?
I mean, I don't think they suck. I can tell you that.
Thank you, Travis.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I don't know if it's going to happen soon, but I currently don't have, like, Kelce Bowl fatigue. Kind of like that might happen eventually, but I don't know. So far, it's been fun.
We'll have it if they lose.
Definitely. I also, though, just, like, find it outrageously funny that we made it through the entirety of the first week of the Super Bowl fortnight. That's 2 weeks, right? Not the fun game that the kids play with all the flossing and the dances and the dabbing. But I think a fortnight's 2 weeks. We got through the first half of the fortnight. Yeet. And there's been no trash talk to speak of. That you cannot find a hot take. You can't. Nowhere to be found. Which feels right, I guess. But I do kind of like that I think Kansas City and Philadelphia have found some kindred spirits over the last, I don't know, decade or so of our NFL lives. I haven't heard from a Philly fan that has anything bad to say about Andy Reid. Andy Reid doesn't say anything bad about Philly, even the ownership and all of that. Spags, too. I mean, it's been a love fest so far through 1 week. I'm guessing somebody's going to say something this week that they don't mean to or they shouldn't say. But even if that happens, even if like Willie Gay kind of steps in it on accident again this week, it's just going to be because he's stuck in Bengals mode. Like the Chiefs just have a little bit of, like Justin Reed might still be back somewhere going like, oh man, those bleeping Bengals. But then someone's going to ask him about A.J. Brown and he's like, oh yeah, no, great player. A lot of respect. Should be a good game.
Imagine if Joe Tooney just comes out and is like, man, they suck. They're not going to be able to get to Mahomes. We're going to just do everything. We're going to own them.
We are going to exhaust them by a halftime. This game's going to be over before Rihanna's on the field. 28-3. 28-3 D's. I'm Joe Tooney. Do you think Joe Tooney's the one who said that thing in the locker room last week?
Oh, definitely.
It would be amazing. Also amazing, these Chiefs rookie defensive backs that I've been talking about so much, especially late in the regular season through these playoffs. My agenda will not be slowed down. With a little help from Benjamin Solak of the Ringer NFL show, I got a few clips from their Monday edition, kind of looking ahead at some matchup things. But it makes me happy to hear anybody talk about the Chiefs rookie defensive backs. There's a guy he mentions here at the beginning, a winning team member of the 2021 Big Data Bowl. The name he's looking for here is Mark Richards, a recent hire for the Chiefs that he gives some credit for the development of this group. I think that's a little bit the case. There's more going on as well. But here's Benjamin Solak talking about the Chiefs rookie defensive backs, specifically late in the season, as this draft class has just absolutely stepped up in huge moments as of late.
I have a sneaky feeling that the Chiefs are doing something in terms of defensive backs that is really clever and is going to get caught on to, because they have a guy on their analytics staff. I can't recall his name. I'll find it here, who won the 2021 Big Data Bowl with a project that was about charting individual defensive players' performance and coverage. And then they brought him on as their staff. And the next year they're playing all rookie defensive backs, and all these guys were drafted in the 6th round, and they're all good. They know something that we don't know is happening in Kansas City, because the play they're getting out of this secondary, Brian Cook, Jalen Watson, Watson, I knew he was like holding his own as a rookie. I remember watching him early in the season being like, yeah, okay. This recent film's been good period. 6th round rookie. I'm extremely impressed with what they've done with that rookie secondary. That's really hard to do.
7th round rookie, just for a quick correction. And I just find it to be tremendous. So again, mentioning the Big Data Bowl thing, and this is a side of analytics that never get out into any sort of open conversation because teams are protecting their data, and also we don't know how to talk about it. But so this isn't like a 4th down analytic situation. This is a guy who was, again, on the winning Big Data Bowl team in 2021 on tracking individual guys in coverage in some sort of new way. I can only imagine what all goes into that. And also, the Chiefs have gotten really successful play from their rookies and from their late drafted guys since before he was hired, which is why I keep going back to Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt being the first guys on the list. When you've got a 4th-round draft pick in L'Jarius Sneed playing like a bona fide all-pro, and he goes down, and then your trio of Trent McDuffie, Joshua Williams in the 4th round, Jalen Watson in the 7th round, and Brian Cook is a late 2nd-round pick. When those guys can all be on the field together against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and play not just head above water football, but really, really good football against that level of competition, that's something to brag about. The Chiefs have an edge there. I think it's going to continue into the Super Bowl, but it's another good matchup. One we'll talk about with Kent Swanson of KC Sports Network next in The Zone.
Hey, Kansas fans.
SportsCenter is brought to you by the University of St. Mary's. University of St. Mary Overland Park campus classes start March 13th. Learn more at a virtual info session on February 23rd. stmary.edu/RSVP. It was a tough week in local college basketball over the weekend. Mizzou losing at Mississippi State, KU losing at number 13 Iowa State, and K-State losing at home to number 10 Texas. KU and Texas coverage starts tonight at 6:30 in a huge game at the top of the Big 12, with Texas having a chance to extend its lead. Meanwhile, the Chiefs have landed, as have the Eagles in Arizona. The designations from the end of last week are all we have on the injury front. Things don't look good for McCole Hardman, but Juju Smith-Schuster, L'Jarius Sneed, Kadarius Toney, and Willie Gay all seem to be trending in the right direction. More to come still the rest of the week. This is The Zone. This is SportsCenter. I'm Joshua Brisco. Kent Swanson's next.
You're in the zone.
I've been a Chiefs fan now, and I've for my entire short life, and I haven't seen any quarterbacks that are out here ready to go rock a jeans commercial. I want Patrick Mahomes to have the ability to go absolutely crush a commercial selling denim. I want that for my quarterback.
With Jason Anderson.
What are they going to do with his voice? It's Pat Mahomes with Lee Jeans here.
On Sports Radio 810. WHB.
Rolling on in the zone here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Joshua Brisco here with you. Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. Kent Swanson of KC Sports Network on the line as we speak. Kent, my friend, how are you feeling as Super Bowl week is finally here? It's upon us.
Oh, man. It feels good. It feels real good. I was feeling a lot better until I heard that intro where, I mean, Josh, you are a little vain. You missed a perfect opportunity to do the update at the beginning of the hour and say, I'm Josh Brisco, now here's the incomparable Josh Brisco, and you just blew it. Like, why didn't you just introduce yourself? I'm very disappointed in you.
That's a great question. It's the fact that there's a lot of spinning plates here. I know a lot of people believe that Jason really doesn't do much work around here. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that's true, but every once in a while, it's like, if I have to bend over and pick up the piece of trash he dropped on the floor on the way out, I got to do that. So this has just been my effort to keep the zone on the rails, which is usually the exact opposite of my goal on this show.
We're off to a great start, buddy.
I think we are.
I think you're doing wonderful. You're doing wonderful solo. I think you're doing great, buddy.
Thank you so much. If I could just get a little reassurance every couple of questions from you, I really think that would do wonders for my psyche.
That'd be very unlike our relationship, however.
That's true. That's true. It's what made
that's out of character.
It made that effort that you just made there even more disorienting to me. Is like, wait a second, why is he being encouraging? What's the takedown going to be? It's going to be bad. First and foremost, before we get into Super Bowl week and all of the fun that comes with it, how was Vegas? How was the Shrine Bowl for the KCSN crew?
We had a absolutely phenomenal time. It was a lot of work. I mean, we've got 40 plus interviews with prospects that you're going to be seeing on KCSN and podcast videos throughout draft week. We got to do a ton of Chiefs content, obviously, because they not only were in the AFC Championship game, but went to the Super Bowl. We got to do it in a really, the Blue Wire studio. So we had a lot of fun. I am still in recovery because that was a lot. I mean, we were going 100 miles an hour for 10 hours a day. But, it was a great time.
Is it too late to look back on the AFC Championship game with you a little bit? Because I did catch a little bit of the post-game show that you guys did from out there, and it seemed like you had, I don't know, a little energy and a few things to say about it.
Josh, so we did go for it. We did a watch party during the game, a second screen watch party, and then we did a post-game show. And I kept it real calm for the watch party, but then 12 months of angst, of stupid Patrick Mahomes narratives, the audacity to compare the best player in the world, the best player of a generation, and dare I say the future GOAT to Joe Burrow was just we can talk about that game all we want because, I mean, it's one of my favorite subjects is dunking on an inferior quarterback who has the audacity to think he's remotely close to him. So, sure, yeah.
Well, then we can do that, and maybe some of this will apply to the Eagles as well for you, because however much you need to connect it for it to make sense to you. That's I just want you to be comfortable. Because again, I'm dipping back a little bit, but like you wrote about some of the more unsung heroes of that game, and this isn't the case around me because I have been, if not literally singing, figuratively singing the praises of the rookie cornerback class for a while now. But specifically, man, what we saw from them at the end of the regular season, then through the playoffs, and especially when they end up out there with no L'Jarius Sneed across from Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and at least for a little while Tyler Boyd, all of those guys ended up literally getting their hands on the ball and making their impact felt in such a tremendous way that we're a week away from A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and I feel fine.
Well, I think there's two things. Like, yes, I mean, this cornerback group has played well throughout the season, and that's a big thing for this group. But it's also what they've had to do when they've had to do it is such a big confidence builder that you're looking at a group that is talented, that started to figure it out over the season. You heard Jalen Watson saying, what rookies? Well, it's that compounded with the fact that, they've proven themselves in the biggest moments where I think that's going to breed a lot of confidence. So this is a group that's not only talented, that has got a lot of reps under the belt now, but also is just playing with an elite amount of belief in themselves. And they should, because they've made big plays. Yeah, and the thing I love about the cornerback group that we saw in the AFC Championship game, and it definitely carries over to this game for sure too, is there was such a short memory with this group that they gave up some plays at times, but they came back and continued to fight and continue to make plays as the game went on. So, Jalen Watson wasn't perfect, but, man, Jalen Watson had some big moments, and the moment wasn't too big for him at all. And I think that's why you should be confident. You should feel good about this group heading into the Super Bowl against really good receivers.
How would that make you feel about the rest of the defense kind of coming together? Because we did see Chris Jones wreaking absolute havoc. We did see Frank Clark making big plays. It really was a complimentary defensive effort. Is that more concerning to you, knowing that the Eagles' offensive line is in a better place than the Bengals' O-line?
Oh, I don't know. They're definitely in a better place, but I still think everything that you've seen from the defensive side of the football, and I always go back to this comment that Steve Spagnuolo made right after the 2019 Super Bowl that they won. In the offseason, they're just talking, and I think Tyrann Mathieu even talked about it, is just like you start from ground zero every year, and it doesn't matter if you won the Super Bowl or not. You're starting from scratch with this group, even though there's a lot of familiarity. And this was unlike this is the same thing as every year. Is they start from ground zero and they build their way up, and they've been building to this moment. They've been giving a lot of youngsters opportunities. As maddening as the approach that the Chiefs have had, with some of their game decisions during the regular season, it's to give these guys reps and opportunities to win games for this football team because they knew they were going to need them today. They knew they were going to need them on Sunday. And, I feel good regardless of the opponent that this group is building towards, their best version of themselves. I think last week was about that. And I think it's just going to take another performance similar to what you just saw where, confidence and execution on that side of the ball is going to do good things regardless of the fact that offense is a unique challenge.
On a 1 to 10 scale, what's your Spagsivity rating right now?
It's the high. It's a 9 or a 10. I mean, what they did last week was great, and obviously just having an elite pass rush is great. But Chris Jones was unbelievable, but the rest of that group was too. But they did such a good job in making adjustments to just take away easy completions for Joe Burrow. Yeah. Where they weren't putting Nick Bolton in conflict. They were just making him go take somebody. Just take something away. Go pick something and take something away. And, Spags is in his bag when it matters the most. And Joe Colin, I think, deserves a raise and a promotion if Steve Spagnuolo moves on. But I think this coaching staff's locked in, and I don't think that's going to be any different with 2 weeks to prepare against a very good Eagles team.
Tell me a little bit more about taking away the easy stuff for Joe Burrow, and then again, if any of that's translatable to what the Eagles do.
Well, I think it's just I think when you look at, sometimes with some coverages, it can be very easy to guard grass. And I think, I think there's limitations at the linebacker position for guys like Nick Bolton where, you're going to, if you have him covering grass, you don't have him covering anything.
Yeah.
Then he's covering nothing,
Yeah.
And so I think, there was just...
You don't have to be afraid to say that, by the way. That was super reasonable and, well-logicked, and your Mizzou fans aren't going to come get you for that. You're safe here. Jason's not here.
I don't know about that.
Jason's not here today, Kent.
The audacity to say he's not an elite coverage player,
How
But
dare you?
I look at this group, and some of the safeties and stuff that they were just kind of, they're buzzing down, taking some stuff away. I just was really impressed with how specific they were with some of that stuff. Now, it's a little bit trickier with the Eagles because I think the Eagles put your linebackers in a very big bind. And so, I don't know if they're going to be able to do the exact same thing. I think, the Eagles, one of the things that they pride themselves on is putting a player in conflict, which is, giving, Nick Bolton an opportunity to defend the run or cover, which I think the Chiefs will probably have to have some curveballs where they're buzzing the safety down to, to take away a run alley or something like that. But it's not going to be an apples-to-apples thing, but I think what you've seen is, this team will do things to try to get you out of what they're best at, and they're going to try to do things to disrupt how you operate as an offense, which is, I think, what they were doing with Nick Bolton and the safeties last week is I think they did a good job of just committing to taking certain things away, and because the pass rush was getting home, Burrow wasn't having a chance to get off it to the backside of the play.
Do you feel like there's an obvious or even just your preferred thing that you try to take away from the Eagles? Because being able to play and scheme defensively in an offensive way is really exciting to me. Hey, we want to go take this from you. But I wonder when you say, hey, this is how good the Eagles are at making you do something you don't want to be doing, at putting a player like Nick Bolton in conflict. Is there a first step the Chiefs defense can take to be the aggressor there, or is it going to be a matter of seeing what the Eagles show you first?
This is going to sound crazy. I think I'd start to stop the run and turn this game into Jalen Hurts passing versus Patrick Mahomes passing.
Yeah.
I think that's the route I would take, where I would be very intent on trying to stop the run. Yeah, you might put your big young corners in some one-on-one situations with an A.J. Brown for Devontae Smith. But here's the dirty secret about the NFC Championship game is Jalen Hurts was bad. He was not good, and he doesn't look like the same kind of passer that he was before the injury. He's averaging 6 yards per attempt passing since coming back from that shoulder injury. So I think Jalen Hurts has had an unbelievable season. I think he's a very good football player. I don't think he's an elite passer. And so if you can take away the run game and turn this into a drop back game for the Eagles, I like the Chiefs' chances in that game.
It's interesting because the thing that gives me hives to think about is Jalen Hurts drops back, sees some space in the middle of the field, and then just takes off. We saw Russell Wilson do that a few times. I certainly believe that Jalen Hurts can. But if you're selling out to stop the run, is that also trying to spy Hurts whenever he does drop back and costing yourself a defender there, but being willing to do that for the trade-off? Or what are the consequences of potentially trying to play that way?
I mean, the consequences are you can get beat on some big explosive plays because A.J. Brown's an absolute monster. I mean, so I think that's one factor you got to take into consideration. Devontae Smith's proven to make some plays. But even those plays that they made last week in the NFC Championship game were more about them than the passer. And how repeatable is that?
Yeah.
How repeatable is that kind of offense where some of these big catches are just miracles because Jalen Hurts is kind of all over the map? If you're disciplined in your rush lanes, which I think the Chiefs will be, it's a march to the quarterback as much as maybe Chris Jones gets to win quick a little bit. Let him do what he's doing, but it's a little bit more of a march to the quarterback, a little bit more contained rush. I think that can kind of help mitigate that a little bit. And just because you're selling out to stop the run doesn't mean that you don't have eyes on him. I'd play a lot of. I mean, you might play a lot of zone coverage, but add math to the box with the safety. Maybe it's a little bit more middle field close coverage, where you're still getting eyes on the quarterback, but you're adding more math to the box. I think there's some strategies you can kind of employ there where, there's some big plays to be had. You're relying on rookie cornerbacks. But I think you can still contain Jalen Hurts scrambling, and I think you can contain that run game. Well, if you sell out to do it.
Yeah. Going back to the Eagles' offensive line a little bit, I heard a hesitance in your voice when I offhandedly mentioned that they're in a better spot than the Bengals are in. But I've been kind of wondering if we would crack this egg at any point this week. Where, look, and these are not all offensive line stats. Sometimes sacks or quarterback stat. The Bengals ended up playing one fewer game, so not the richest stat. But the Eagles and Bengals both allowed 44 sacks this season. And again, taking it at face value for not being the richest stat in the world, it's not like the Eagles have been impossible to get past when it comes to getting the Jalen Hurts and a couple times also Gardner Minshew again. But I have seen them be outrageous in the running game. I have seen them just move blocking sleds of real NFL players. But am I right to say that you might be a little bit hesitant to say that the Eagles are the green curtain of death or whatever?
Yeah, I don't think they're I don't think they're an immovable object. I think that they're a group that you can. I mean, look, they're hobbled for one. Lane Johnson's playing through some injuries. It's not like this is a completely healthy offensive line. So there's that. But also like Jalen Hurts is susceptible to taking sacks. Jalen Hurts is susceptible to pressure. We've seen that to be the case this season. I think it's an outstanding scheme. It's a good offensive line. It's a great offensive line. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like they're playing at their fullest strength, and it's not like their quarterback is either. So the run game is elite when Jalen Hurts is, when they're confident running Jalen Hurts and Jalen Hurts is running confident. Well, Jalen Hurts, since he came back from his injury, he's running the ball a decent amount, especially in the playoffs. His yards per carry is under 4 right now. Since he came back from that injury. So everything has to kind of be working in conjunction with each other to get that dynamic version of this team. And I think the offensive line's been helped by that run game and how that run scheme has worked a little bit too. So it's a little bit of both. But that's such a fence-sitting answer, but it's the truth. I think there's some things to be excited about this offensive line, and there's some things where I think you can poke holes in it.
And that the latter part there is the reason that I ask it all, because I do think that there's a little bit of a mystique to that unit at this point that might be having some people assuming that we're not going to hear from Frank Clark or George Karlaftis all day. And I mean, if that's the case, it would be bad news regardless. So we've also spent this whole time going Chiefs defense versus Eagles offense, which is funny because I'm not asking you what you wanted to talk about. I just sort of pushed in that direction because I've been so intrigued by the Chiefs defense, and I don't know how to feel about the Eagles offense. But meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes still plays football. I just don't know who's going to be catching all the passes from him. It seems like L'Jarius Sneed and Willie Gay are clearly on the right track. Mecole Hardman very unlikely to play in this game based off what Andy Reid said last week. And you've got Juju Smith-Schuster and Kadarius Toney with a knee and ankle/hamstring respectively. What are you going to be looking for, not just on the injury report and practice this week, but if those guys are limited, how much does that change how you feel about the Chiefs' offense? What if it's MVS and Justin Watson out there making it happen?
I mean, obviously, I'd prefer if you're getting some time from Kadarius and Juju. Mm-hmm. Even one of them, I think, just changes the complexion of what this offense is able to do. Yeah. But man, I don't know if I care. Especially, I think this group's still going to be able to put points on the board. I still think this offense is going to be able to move the ball a little bit. Obviously, I think, especially with Kadarius Toney, I think the red zone offense could be really interesting. I think that's one thing we really haven't looked at a ton is, if Kadarius Toney isn't able to beat Kadarius Toney, one of him and Mecole has always, had some success in the red zone, stretching the field horizontally, where that's where the Chiefs have done a lot of really good work when they're in the red zone is that stretch game. But even without them, we've seen this group kind of be able to move the football a little bit. The Chiefs are going to have 2 weeks to prepare for who's in and who's out and have some contingencies in place. weirdly enough, like, I'm not the biggest Justin Watson fan, but at the same time, I'd rather have him on the field than Marcus Kemp 10 times out of 10. So I think the Chiefs are going to have enough in place that they're going to be able to move the ball successfully regardless of who at the receiver position is there. Like, this is always kind of built around Travis Kelce and the backs out of the backfield. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling was outstanding. You know, like, I think there's a path to success regardless of who's in and who's out. I obviously would just prefer more options at the buffet, though.
You don't sound very worried about much, Kent. That's sort of the vibe check
I'm not,
getting
man.
here. You don't seem very worried about much.
I'm not, and it's not that I don't think the Eagles are a good football team. What that team did last week against Cincinnati is remarkable, and it's repeatable because the guy playing quarterback is playing quarterback this week. And, like, I think that's what we learned is, like, Patrick Mahomes on a bum ankle was still able to make things work. Where I don't, like, Josh, we haven't talked about this. I don't think the Chiefs were the play clock was because I don't think the Chiefs knew what to call at times because of the personnel issues that they were having. Like, I genuinely think at times it's the play calls getting in, and they're having to tell Marcus Kemp let's run maybe a little bit. Like, MVS is lining up all over the city. But they didn't matter. Mahomes just kept figuring out ways to win, and the Chiefs left a lot of points on the board. Like, that's the other thing that we don't talk about with that Bengals game. Like, the Chiefs did not play their A game offensively, but they're still able to find a lot of success. I think this team's going to know how to handle, potential injuries a little bit better, and I think Mahomes is just not going to let this football team lose. So I'm not stressed, and I feel really good about this game. Maybe I feel too good. I don't know.
Yeah, you just don't even have that, like, little gnawing voice in the back of your head that's just like, maybe this week will be different for some reason, for no reason in particular. Something weird's going to happen. They're just going to come out flat. Like, because I was going to ask if you thought why you're so confident it's repeatable, and then you told me why it's repeatable because it's 15. But that feeling of, like, going back to the Raiders game in the end of the regular season, going, oh man, well, if that team just keeps coming out, and look, injuries notwithstanding, they kind of have. I just keep worrying that the bottom is going to, if not fall out, just sputter at some point, and that a better team's going to be able to take advantage of that. But maybe the Eagles aren't going to be that team.
Well, and, like, I go back to, like, the last Super Bowl the Chiefs played in. I felt pretty good about the Chiefs being able to mitigate the pass rush of the Buccaneers and what happened. I wasn't as supremely confident as I was today, but I think if you're going to give me the options, I think I'd rather have some issues at pass catcher than at offensive line, and the Chiefs don't have issues at offensive line this year.
Yeah.
So they're going to give Mahomes a chance. I mean, Marcus Kemp was catching passes.
Yep.
He caught passes in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
He was a practice squad player. He's not even on the 53-man roster. Like, it's just like this dude's found a way to win with whatever they had, with whatever was on the call sheet that they had available to him or to them. And so, I like where this team is at. I think the Eagles, like, I'm buying what Brandon Ayuk was selling when he said, the Eagles are not this juggernaut defensively in the back end of their defense. They can be got. I 100% believe that the Chiefs can expose the back seven of that offense. I think Mahomes can have a big game, and I don't know if I necessarily care who's catching those passes. I think that things are going to happen.
Is Jody Fortson running wide receiver routes if the Bengals don't claim Chris Lamons? Like, is that what happened there? Is that the sliding doors moment?
It's not Jody. I think it's Marcus Kemp.
But I'm saying, is Marcus Kemp even called up if the Bengals don't claim Lamons?
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
no, I don't think
he's
so.
Probably not.
So. 100%. I genuinely believe that the reason Marcus Kemp was called up is because they lost special teams ace Chris Lamont because the Bengals were trying to be petty and pathetic. Yeah. And it didn't work. And the Chiefs had an extra receiver on the active roster that day because of it. I'm lockstep with you, Matt. I'm lockstep with you, Josh. Almost called you Matthew. Been talking to him all morning.
You didn't almost. Beards, go ahead and mark that. Not for cuts on Friday, but made a really no, just for me to have just whenever I get too high at any point, when I feel like life's going too well, when I think
you have that problem often.
When I think when I think I've got a real friend in Kent Swanson, I'm just was so excited to get to talk to him on a Super Bowl week Monday. We get all the way to about the end of the segment, and he calls me Matt.
You got to keep you humble, buddy. I was too nice to you to start the show, so I kind of had to take you down there a little bit.
All right, Craig, can I get a prediction from you before we let you go?
I think it's a lot of points scored for the Chiefs. Let's just have some fun. I haven't predicted this game yet, so you're the first one to hear it. Give me 31-20 Chiefs, and yes, I know exactly what that score represents in Kansas City in Super Bowl. Give me 31-20 Chiefs.
The third best member of the KC Lab podcast, and one of the members, no one will argue that, of the KC Sports Network, Kent Swanson. You can also follow him on Twitter at Kent_Swanson if you want some okay food takes and some really bad opinions about the best Chiefs Twitter follows out there. Kent, appreciate you joining us as you have throughout the season. I really enjoyed our conversation for about the first 22 minutes. I'm going to have a nice long sit in silence in the commercial break, and maybe I'll talk to you again someday in the future.
I appreciate you having me on, Jason.
That's one of the KC Sports Network guys. I've already forgotten which one. I was going to make a joke about him not even having hair that good, but I wasn't able to lie to the audience like that. That one was a bridge too far even for me. Kent Swanson, KC Sports Network. We'll take a break, come back, keep talking about the Super Bowl a little bit. Is that good with you? Good with you? Good with you? Everybody? Super Bowl next?
No,
All right.
I'm good.
All right, 2.5 hours of Kyrie talk with Beards. I'm leaving, but Beards we're either going to come back, and either I'll be in this chair and we'll talk about the NFL, or we'll switch chairs and Beards is going to talk to you about the NBA. Cross your fingers and wait through the break.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. In the Zone.
I was in Las Vegas for like 20 minutes, and I did get naked in the Las Vegas airport.
With Jason Anderson.
Not completely naked. I was sort of Winnie the Poohing.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
The next time I was in a Las Vegas airport, I almost left some equipment behind, sprinted like 2 miles, and almost.
Was that Vegas?
Yeah, it was right. It was in the same airport. It was in like the Vegas Tahoe sort of airport on the way back from LA. We went LA to Vegas, and then I left equipment at the Shake Shack in the Vegas airport. This is my second time to the Vegas airport. And then
So they've both been eventful.
Sprinted back to go get it. Sprinted back. Anybody in the history of air travel ever have a plane board and then attempt to take off ahead of schedule? Because I don't think that's ever happened to me, and it was happening that day. At least I'm over it. Have I been on a plane since then? I'm not sure. I might be done with planes. I might be done with airports. I needed a shuttle. Anyway. Joshua Brisco and Beards McFly with you as Jason is currently on the way to Arizona. He'll be live from Radio Row all the rest of the week, but me and Beards get to run the castle today. I got some good news. I'm going to offer you a chance to get some free meat in 1 second, and then we'll get to some Super Bowl previewing as well. Don't open the phones yet, Beards. Hold on just a second, because I want to tell you where it's coming from.
Don't worry.
I want to tell you where it's coming from first. And then we're going to open the phones to callers number 8, 10, and 57. Beards is waving me off. 8, 10, and 15. We'll do 15 for Patrick Mahomes instead of 57 for Super Bowl 57 because Beards has a job to do. So in a second, phones are still blocked right now. Although over the air, once there's a delay, who's to say? If you call 913-381-810, callers 8, 10, and 15 will win a $30 Kingdom Bundle from our friends over at Hy-Vee. That includes a 10-cent fuel saver, 4 boneless chicken breasts, 4 boneless pork chops, 4 bratwursts, and 4 chuck patties. That's including Hy-Vee's best beef. We've been out to Hy-Vee for a whole bunch of things over the course of the season. Had some delicious, delicious meat from Hy-Vee. And you can get it yourself. Callers number 8, 10, and 15 will need to get your info and then also your preferred Hy-Vee location. You're going to have you pick it up Friday or Saturday between 9 a.m. Friday and 5 p.m. Saturday. Got that window to go pick it up from your local Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee of your choosing. You can tell Beards that in a second. If you are caller number 8, number 10, or number 15, you get Hy-Vee's best beef. Their $30 Kingdom Bundle, yours for free. If you call in right now, 913-381-810. Beards, the gates are open, but before you start taking those calls, could you hit one more button for me? Because we've been talking about the Chiefs' young defense and really what Steve Spagnuolo in particular has done. Got a few minutes of analysis from Benjamin Solak of The Ringer on The Ringer NFL show, talking about what Spags has done this year that has really made him an absolute must-know storyline headed into Super Bowl 57.
Put some respect on Steve Spagnuolo's name, especially when it comes to playoff football. Here's some stats for you. In the last 4 years, the Chiefs have played 11 playoff games with Spags as their defensive coordinator. Only twice have they had a success rate above 50% allowed to the opposing offense. 9 out of 11 games, success rate below 50% for the opposing offense. The Eagles this year on offense averaged 0.1 EPA in the regular season. Nice round number. Only 3 times in 11 games did the Chiefs defense give up a worse EPA per play to the opposing offense than that 0.1, than what the Eagles averaged this year. And guess what? The Chiefs won all 3 of those games. They didn't even lose those games, so the defense gave up those points. Last but not least, Eagles this year, 2.59 points per drive. Only 4 of the 11 games that Spags has coached has the opposing offense done better than that number. And, yes, the Chiefs did play the Steelers in the wild card round of last year. I acknowledge that that was an event that occurred. I know that that's juking the numbers here a little bit. But overall, I mean, this is, a Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, a Super Bowl against the 49ers, the Bengals multiple times, Josh Allen, the Bills multiple times. This is really, really, really stiff competition. And when you go and you try to look and understand how this is happening, what's cool is that you don't see anything. You don't see, oh, wow, they really ramp up their blitz rate relative to their season average. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. You don't see, they start running more nickel and more dime than they did in past seasons. They do actually run a little bit more dime, but it's not enough to be like, this really matters. You don't see something where it's like, they start really pressing these buttons. Like even like Daniel Sorensen. Remember when we were all making fun of Daniel Sorensen, their safety last season? They still are just playing him in the postseason, right? Reduced snaps, but it was something they did in the regular season. It's not like they just like take him off the field and they hide him. So you start asking yourself, why has this defense performed so well in the postseason relative to the regular season? And when you go into the numbers and try to find a theme, you really don't locate anything. It's just they tend to be really good getting off the field on third downs. And then what you've seen in the past 2 games this postseason is they get takeaways. 4 takeaways in the past 2 games they've played. One of them kind of like an end of the game, nothing against the Jaguars when the Jags are trying to get back, down 10 late, whatever. Down 17, I should say, actually late. But in general, they've done a really nice job taking the football away with rookie defensive backs. And so Spags, who's been in the league for forever, man, I was kind of like wondering, like, why doesn't he have any like head coaching buzz? Okay, the Rams, stint was so bad, but that was over a decade ago. You don't realize how long Spags has just been around as a defensive coordinator. Back to his days with the Giants, so much playoff experience. Spags is just rock steady when it comes to playoff performance, especially for these Chiefs, where his defenses know, listen, we just got to get a couple drives. We're going to give them some touchdowns. It's okay. We got to get a sack and force a punt and flip the field position. We got to get a turnover and generate a short field. Our ask isn't that big. This offense will handle itself, right? Those 2 losses that the Chiefs did suffer in the playoffs, Bucks Super Bowl and then Bengals AFC Championship game last year. Well, the offense really struggled in both of those games, right? And so usually, like when the offense works, this Spags defense does enough to get the job done, beat legit playoff opponents. I think the 4th coordinator, the one who's getting the least amount of attention, really deserves some love. Spags in the playoffs is lights out.
Isn't that fascinating? I think there's like half a dozen things in that chunk that is really instructive of where we're at right now. First of all, just to note that of the 4 coordinators in this game, Spags absolutely getting the sort of least national hype. I think it's a good call. I think it's interesting that in the Chiefs' playoff losses, of which there mercifully have not been very many, the Buccaneers Super Bowl and the Bengals AFC Championship game, you couldn't ask for much more from the defense in the Super Bowl. There was just not that much more they could do. And to at least a decent extent in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals last year. Those weren't games where the defense let them down. Those were games where the offense did. The Chiefs' defense has not been the cause of a playoff loss since Spags got to town. And just kind of an interesting way of framing it that, frankly, I hadn't thought of. More schematically speaking, how wild is it that there just isn't much to look at in terms of what Spags starts doing differently come playoff time, at least personnel-wise? Now, we've seen him do some things. I'm talking last segment with Kent. Finding ways to make Joe Burrow uncomfortable by taking away the easy stuff. What that says to me is that the end result from what Solak says there is that there's no real theme as to what they've done differently. No button they keep mashing in the playoff run. But they're a lot better at getting off the field on third down and creating more takeaways. A little more dime, but not like a crazy theme. On one side, look, takeaways aren't always super predictable. They're not prescriptive. You don't necessarily know when the takeaways are coming. You can't just decide to do a takeaway, right? You can decide to blitz or decide to go to dime or decide, to stay in base, but you can't just decide we're running the play for a takeaway now. You can do some things to put your thumb on the scale, but so that part might just be a little bit of randomness that the Chiefs have been in control of. But when it's not personnel and it's not schematic in the more blitzing, less blitzing, more aggressiveness, less aggressiveness sense, where is it coming from?
If they're better getting off the field on third downs and creating turnovers, where is that coming from? We got a good sample size here. 11 playoff games for Spags' defense in Kansas City. And only twice they've allowed a better than 50% success rate to the opposing offense. 11 of those games, and only 3 times did the Chiefs allow a better EPA per play than what the Eagles have been averaging this year. If it's not just like execution and coaching coming home to roost for this part of the playoff run, which I think is probably my number one pick for what the explanation at this point is, guys getting more comfortable and understanding the system better by playoff time. If it's not just that, it's a form of prioritization from Spagnuolo. It's a matter of, this is the way we're going to dial things up today, because we're playing chess, and I can't put extra queens on the board. We all got the same pieces. They know what pieces we're playing with. But if I can make you react to something you weren't expecting to see, and maybe that's scouting in a different sense, right? Just something like showing a simulated pressure and then bailing out of it. Even that we can track now. And the reason that I wanted to pull that clip from Solak is because he really does. He knows the ins and outs of the schematic things. And if there was anything he was seeing that changes from Spags in the regular season to the postseason, I really believe that he would have found it. But again, that then leads me to believe that it is some combination of these players executing at their peak by the end of the season, which I think is very logical, specifically this year, with all these rookies, right? Makes a lot of sense that this would be the time of year that your first-year players who now resent the label of being rookies, which I think is, like, they've earned it. It's kind of corny if you haven't earned it. It's kind of cool if you have. And George Karlaftis is not, in the regular season sense, he's not a rookie anymore. Now, Trent McDuffie still would be. That's nitpicky, I guess. But, like, George Karlaftis got a full regular season of games in. I can't remember who. I don't know if it was Mick or Jason who mentioned it, or somebody mentioned, like, hey, if this is, you're like deep in year 2 of your college football season, just by number of games and length of season. These guys really do have the experience now, and this goes back to me fundamentally believing that Steve Spagnuolo is a good coach. I know, how dare I? You've got to build these guys up as you go to get them to a point where you are having them play useful, good enough football through the first, whatever it may be, 12 weeks of the regular season, building a little bit as you go. Then by the time you arrive at the playoffs, you're saying, hey, Jalen Watson, 7th round pick a few months ago. Could you go body up with T. Higgins for me? Could you go run with Jamar Chase? Because all we got out here are dudes that we drafted in April. And you might not want to be rookies anymore, but this is your second playoff game. You ready for it? And without fail, they all were. Now, look, again, I don't need an excuse to talk about Chris Jones anymore. I will force that narrative in for anyone that wants to hear it, or anyone who doesn't want to hear it, frankly. I'll talk about how vital Chris Jones was to this defense in the AFC Championship game, happily. But that was my first takeaway right after the game, Monday and Tuesday last week. Now that we're here now and we're kind of in storyline mode, just what these rookies have done, I just think is outrageous. And I think it could play in to what you're seeing there and why Spags' defenses play really good in the playoffs without necessarily doing anything obviously differently. We'll take a quick time out here in the zone. Joshua Brisco and Beards McFly flying solo with you here. Solo, I mean, both of us, we're running duos instead of trios today. Look, Jason's on his way to Phoenix. Radio Row Zone starts tomorrow morning. But in the meantime, me and Beards are here with you, getting ready for Super Bowl 57, and then maybe we'll talk some other nonsense across the way as we go as well. Field Yates in about 10 minutes, Mick Shaffer later on. It's The Zone here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
All right, really quick, I got to go to a break here, but hold on. Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel. How do you spell Squeakquel?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Beards, give me the sweeper. We got some breaking news from the Chiefs here on this first day of Super Bowl week. Some good news, bad news. We'll start with the downside of it. Wide receiver Mecole Hardman has been placed on the reserve injured list per the Kansas City Chiefs. His season is officially over. Mentioned earlier in the show that it seemed like that was likely the path for him, as Andy Reid was very pessimistic about his ability to play in the Super Bowl. So Mecole Hardman to IR. And the Chiefs have activated running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire off of IR. Thought it was interesting, this tweet on January 30th, Clyde Edwards-Helaire tweeted, "LOL, leave me alone. Been running for like a month and a half, LOL. Not my call. Second in three years, though. I love it." Gold heart emoji. Red heart emoji. So it sounds like Clyde's been physically perhaps ready to play now for a while, according to himself. So it'll be really interesting to see. It doesn't seem like the Chiefs were in any hurry to get him back out there. I'm guessing that they are happy with the Pacheco-McKinnon 1-2 punch, but will Clyde be active for the Super Bowl? Ronald Jones, perhaps? Something to continue to unpack the rest of the week. We'll talk about that and some more things leading up to the Super Bowl with Field Yates of ESPN next.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
You know what you do after you run the ball on 1st and 10 and you get 0 yards? You run that ball again. You establish that run.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Of all the liners for me to be self-conscious about, that one gave me some just bad heebie-jeebies. What got into me that day? It's The Zone here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson is on his way to Phoenix, so The Zone from Radio Row will begin tomorrow at 10 o'clock. But Joshua Brisco and Beards McFly with you here in the meantime. Joined now by Field Yates of ESPN to look ahead to the Super Bowl, maybe some coaching news. We've got all sorts of stuff going on right now, Field. I know it's never a dull moment in your industry, but this stretch in particular, I imagine your perfect hair has been on fire pretty much 24/7.
Okay, first of all, has anybody considered making you the full-time host of the show? Because Jason never compliments my hair. Let's put that out there right away.
Let's do that.
Like, do we have to question whether Jason cares enough? Like, it's Super Bowl Monday. Like, why not find a red eye or something? Get over there to Arizona at a different time of the day.
We have the technology for him to do it from the plane, I think, and that would have sounded awesome.
Totally. Over the past 3 years, we can do anything. We just have to have like a dial-up internet or a Wi-Fi internet. Like, we can make it happen. More seriously, it is this very weird time of the year. It's a great time of the year, the greatest time of the year, especially obviously for Chiefs and Eagles fans right now. But it's like there's so much left to be decided. It's only the most prestigious portion of the NFL's calendar. At the same time, like if you were to like hover into like Los Angeles and like around the Rams facility, like there's nothing going on right now. Right? Like, and that's the case for a lot of teams. Yes, there are coordinators. Yes, there are still a couple of head coaching vacancies. But, like, you got to, like, the Rams or the Jets or the Saints. I guess the Saints hired a defensive coordinator today. But for the most part, it's just sort of like, just chugging along, working on some season review film, maybe a little bit of free agency prep. It's quiet in, like, half the NFL, and the rest of it is absolute mayhem.
This is Field Yates, the greatest guest in the history of The Zone, currently in the midst of his best segment on The Zone of ESPN. Well, let's start outside of the Super Bowl real quick, and then we'll work our way back in, because certainly that's where we're gonna land today. But I wanted to ask you specifically about what you know about the Sean Payton saga, him ending up in Denver, and there being some reporting about what exactly Denver was looking for, who their first choice was, and how they ended up with Sean Payton.
Well, what's interesting is literally just moments ago, the same time that we joined this interview began, Sean Payton's press conference began with the Denver Broncos, introductory press conference. So I do think he'll be able to shed a little bit of light on that, or the Broncos will. And I don't want to sound, sort of lame, but my big belief is that, like, I'm not as concerned about, like, the process that got you to your head coach. I'm more concerned about the head coach and who that head coach is and what that head coach does once he gets the opportunity. I talked about this with Jason in the past couple of shows, that I'm going to try my best to reserve too much judgment on head coaching hires this offseason, other than when it's a head coach has been a head coach before, right? And 2 out of 3 vacancies so far are head coaches that have been head coaches previously. So I know for the Broncos, like, it's been a bit of a, like, here's the reality. When you trade 3 first-round picks and for a quarterback that immediately plays, like garbage, or I guess 2 first-round picks plus multiple other assets, like, you kind of become a little bit more of a punching bag. The Broncos have had a sort of a cluster process to get to where they are now, but Sean Payton is objectively an excellent head coach. Does that mean that the gap between the Broncos and the Chiefs immediately narrows? No, but I certainly think that the Broncos franchise, independent of what it means for the Chiefs, is in a better spot now than it was a month ago.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I heard some people make a good point that, hey, this time last year, this was Russell Wilson's team, and Nathaniel Hackett was the head coach of Russell Wilson's team. This is Sean Payton's team now, and Russell Wilson's the quarterback. Like, that shift in power dynamic seems like a good thing for them.
Yeah, I'd say so too. And, obviously the objective for Sean Payton can be to get Russell Wilson back on track. And I do think that's the case, by the way. Like, I do think he can do that. Like, I don't think Russell Wilson has a top 3 season ahead of him. But I also think that it's very plausible that, like, Russell Wilson could look not exactly like the player he was in Seattle, but, like, much closer to it. I mean, how many quarterbacks this year, for better or worse, changed dramatically, in large part because of the context surrounding them? Yeah. A year ago, if I posted that Daniel Jones would lead a team to a playoff win, you would have laughed me off the show. You would have hung up on me, right? And yet here we are, and now we're wondering, like, Daniel Jones is bound for at least the franchise tag. And if I told you the Giants could get him for 4 years and $140 million, you might not necessarily agree with it, but you also understand it, right? You'd be like, yeah, that's kind of how things work with the quarterbacks, right? It's going to have to be over, $35 or so million per year, probably closer to 40. Like, you might have some hesitation about it, but you're going to understand it if it happens. So I think quarterback context really matters. Russell Wilson, I think, will be a much better player this year.
You mentioned one team that connects us to two, one current and one former Chiefs assistant that you walked us here. Mike Kafka is a finalist for the Cardinals job. Eric Bieniemy continues to coach because the Chiefs aren't out of it yet, obviously. But I found that whole process pretty interesting, where it seems like Kafka's star has risen very quickly, in part because of what that offense looked like with Daniel Jones. And Eric Bieniemy signed the one-year deal last offseason, so we'll see where he goes from here. Are you seeing anything? Do you make any connections there from Kafka leaving as the quarterback's coach here in Kansas City, landing with the Giants, now being in line to be a head coach? Is that a move that you think is coming for Eric Bieniemy, or one of those vacancies maybe right now is Indianapolis still just kind of keeping the seat warm?
Yeah, I don't know what will happen with the Indianapolis coaching search. As a matter of fact, I just spent the past week in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. And it's sort of like the Combine where there's every team represented, and there's a lot of there are a lot of dinners and drinks between the media and people inside the league, and inevitably people get talking, and you start to hear the latest gossip, rumors, etc. And the one thing that no one had a real pulse on was who the Colts head coach is going to be, because everybody is in the dark, right?
Yeah.
It's been a very slow process. I think at last check, there's still 7 candidates that are in the mix. Obviously, Jeff Saturday is one of those candidates. Eric Bieniemy is one of those candidates. It is it's a great mystery. I would think that Eric Bieniemy's only shot at a head coaching gig right now is Indianapolis. But I do think it's interesting to see what happens with him if he doesn't get that Indianapolis job, because this is maybe a total miscalculation on my part, but I would think, and I could be wrong here again, but if the Chiefs are willing to grant him opportunities to interview for offensive coordinator gigs elsewhere this offseason, it might suggest that they are preparing for him to leave, even if it's not for a head coaching job, and there's probably a plan in place to succeed him. My guess would be that means Matt Nagy takes over as the offensive coordinator. And I think Mike Kafka's got a real shot at the Arizona job. I think it's extremely impressive. Chiefs fans, I'm sure, appreciate the work he did helping Patrick Mahomes grow, and certainly helping support Eric Bieniemy as the coordinator and Andy Reid as the head coach. He fits in what I think Arizona probably needs right now, which is somebody that can take a quarterback who, like Daniel Jones a year ago, is a bit of mystery, and Kyler Murray, and help get that quarterback in place and get him to that best self, because the very best of Kyler Murray on the field, pretty darn good player.
Yeah, I think that matchup, that pairing would be a pretty fun one. But I also thought for a while that Mike Kafka would be the Chiefs' next offensive coordinator, and then he's gonna be a head coach perhaps before the Chiefs even actually officially have a vacancy. Wild.
No question about it. Yep.
Field Yates of ESPN with us here in the Zone. Let's go Super Bowl then, if I can twist your arm a little bit. Which of the storylines going into this are you finding yourself still intrigued by? I don't know if you want to go big picture, Kelsey Bowl, Andy Reid, or if there's some matchups that have kind of risen to the surface for you here about a week out.
Well, certainly the Kelsey and the Andy Reid Bowl is certainly that. I mean, those are almost too easy. I would say more specifically, though, that I believe, and this is probably everything that every take we have this week is simplifying things. Not one thing is going to define who wins the Super Bowl. I do think, though, amongst the factors I am most focused in on is the offensive line for both teams. The Eagles, as we know, have a pass rush that, at least statistically, has a chance to become legendary, has a chance to finish with the most sacks by a team in a single season. Obviously, they would have had 4 extra games, the 17th regular season game plus 3 games in the playoffs, than other teams that never made the playoffs. And but still, I mean, it's an impressive front. They are the only team ever with 4 guys with double-digit sacks in the same regular season. And as we know, the Chiefs' offensive line is one of their great strengths. It was the NFL's leader in terms of pass block win rate for those that subscribe to such a stat. It also was 3rd in terms of fewest sacks allowed. But then flip that as well. As we know with the Chiefs, that pass rush is pretty deep now, right? It's not just Chris Jones, who is play wrecking at the moment, but Frank Clark, who just kicks things up a notch in the playoffs, is one of the most prolific sackers ever in postseason history. Mike Dana, 41% of the snaps this season, but it feels like every snap he's played in the playoffs has been fairly consequential. George Karlaftis had a sack last week. I'm sorry, 8 days ago, but still last week. Right. They've got layers to this, right? All of a sudden, it's a group that even if it doesn't have a super-duper star besides Chris Jones is pretty formidable. And as we know, that Eagles offensive line is just outstanding.
I'm really glad that you mentioned them in particular because this is something that I'm genuinely kind of trying to understand better this week. And look, sacks are not purely an offensive line stat. I know that. I know Jalen Hurts hasn't been the only quarterback back there. We've seen some Gardner Minshew and all of that. But the Eagles did allow, I think it was the same number of sacks as the Bengals this year. The Bengals had one fewer game again. It's not the best stat I could have picked. If I had the pass rush win rate, I would take it. But even with that being said, I've seen them be maulers in the run game. I know them to be destroyers of worlds. But in pass protection with the Chiefs' pass rush, are there matchups to be had there still, with it being kind of a banged-up Eagles offensive line? Or do I have Bengals O-line hangover, and I'm just kind of hoping that it looks similar like it did last week?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite the same. I think the big thing is that, like, not all sacks are created equally, right? Definitely. And when you have a quarterback in Jalen Hurts that is mobile as he is, it gives him a chance to extend plays. I think Patrick Mahomes fits in this category as well. I do think that Patrick has become more decisive as his career has gone on, right? It feels like that's an area he's improved upon, one of many. But I feel like the number of sacks taken by Jalen Hurts is probably not reflective of the offensive line. Lane Johnson, I think, is a strong case, is the best tackle, certainly the best right tackle, but one of the best tackles, if not the best, in the NFL. And left tackle Jordan Mailata is one of the great stories of development in the entire league. A guy who began playing football like 6 years ago. Now he makes $16 million a year as a very underpaid left tackle. So there's no real weak link, in my opinion, on this team. And I'd say same thing for the Chiefs. Like, there's no real weak link here. Like, I think that someone's going to lose this game, but it's going to be because the other team has earned this Super Bowl. This does not feel the line reflects it, right? It's gone back and forth. I think the most it's been either way has been 1.5 points, but it's changed back and forth already. Vegas forecast this is one of the great Super Bowls we've had in a long time.
Let's talk about one other matchup that I've been honing in on because I've just been so impressed by what the Chiefs' young cornerbacks have been doing really the last few weeks of the regular season into the playoffs. And they lose L'Jarius Sneed against the Bengals. And it's just 3 rookie corners out there with a rookie safety back behind him and Brian Cook for a huge chunk of the game. And they held their own against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but now it's A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So what do you see when the Chiefs' defense is out there and the Eagles go to pass?
So the entire draft class deserves a ton of praise, right? Pretty much everybody, except for I think Darian Kennard, who is going to be a good player for them at some point, but just there's only 5 offensive linemen to play each snap. So I would say that the Chiefs cornerbacks hung about as well as you could hang with a really, really good group of receivers in the Bengals. I think the big thing is, and this is not always a sexy thing to say, but oftentimes cornerback play is as good as the pass rush allows it to be, right? Mm-hmm. And if the pass rush is really effective, like it was last week, I know that the Chiefs were especially effective early when they sacked Joe Burrow on 3 straight pass dropbacks. Just dropback. I don't know why I called it a pass dropback, but yeah. Anyways, the Chiefs, it was an excellent performance from their pass rush last week. If they can duplicate that again this week, I think the cornerback room has a chance to really hold up. But if Jalen Hurts has time and space to throw, what makes the offense in general is so unique. It's basically just they're playing math all game, right? A lot of their RPOs are hey, you find the 2-on-1 or you find the crashing defensive end, that means you're running, but there's Dallas Goedert leaking out in the flat, and if the linebacker attacks you, you throw it to Dallas Goedert. It's definitely different than Cincinnati. There are some things that are similar in the sense they're very explosive, but the conventional drop-back passing game is not exactly the same, which will change how the Chiefs are able to rush and how the Eagles are able to move the ball down the field as well.
Will the Chiefs defense be able to hang with that? Will they score enough points on their own? What are you expecting to see on Sunday?
Yeah, I think both. I've gone back and forth. I think when I had to submit my official pick last week, because we get ahead of that a little bit, I think I had the Eagles winning 24-23. I think I'm going to flip it. It's a little bit of Mahomes magic, 27-23, somewhere in that territory. I think it'll be an awesome game, though. This strikes me as one that we could be talking about for a long, long time. I can't wait to see it. I'm not going to be at the game, but I'm going to be out in Arizona for just a little bit this week, and the energy should be palpable.
I can't wait. I very much hope that we're talking about an instant classic with you this time next week. I also hope we're talking about how you made the right decision by flipping the pick there as the game approaches. Field, appreciate you and your great hair making time with us again today, as we do every Monday with you. We'll chat again next week and see where we ended up.
John, really, I don't know what it was that was different about this interview compared to the last 20 weeks, but this was probably the best we've had all season. Don't tell, please, don't tell Jason that. Oh, you can tell him that. Don't worry.
I think it's already a liner, man. I think this has been taken out of our hands. I think Beards made these choices himself. Thank you, Field.
Love it. Take care. Sounds good.
Field Yates of ESPN. Just a real great performance from him today. Appreciate him more than ever. I mean, it's hard to say more than ever because he's been such a great guest for us for so long. But really today, I'm just overwhelmed with emotion of how good Field Yates is at all of this. You can follow him on Twitter if you'd like, at Field Yates. You probably already do. You didn't need me to tell you that. Hey, can I tell you something else? Give you some good news? Maybe offer you some free meat? Beards, you still want to do this here or you want to do it next segment? You tell me. We got meat to give away.
We already opened the Pandora's door. Let's go.
Pandora's door.
You heard me.
The famous literary myth, Pandora's door. It's the music app, right?
Icarus, no, don't swim.
Icarus, get out of the water. Wait a second. What?
You'll get a cramp.
Here's the fun news, everybody. We're going to open up the phones in just a second. We're going to give these out. We got 2 remaining today, right, Beards? 2 left. Caller number 8 and caller number 10. Don't start calling yet. Don't start calling yet. Phones are still blocked. Caller number 8 and caller number 10 are going to get a great deal from our friends at Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee's best beef has been a real staple of my life this football season. We've gone out and made some great videos with the Hy-Vee folks, getting to taste some of their delicious items from the butcher block. Well, you got a $30 Kingdom bundle. It's a great price, but you can get it for free. We're talking 4 ground chuck patties, 4 boneless pork top loin chops, 4 pork bratwurst, and 4 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, plus a 10-cent fuel saver, all from Hy-Vee with Hy-Vee's best beef. All you got to do is call in. If you're caller number 8 or caller number 10, you're going to give Beards your info and your preferred Hy-Vee location. You got to pick them up between 9 a.m. Friday and 5 p.m. Saturday, and you'll have them in time for the big game. That's all from our friends at Hy-Vee. Caller number 8 and caller number 10. Get yourself the Kingdom Bundle from Hy-Vee.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Give me both of them back to back. Give me your audience and your critic score for Paul Bart Mall Cop.
Audience 100%, critics 99.
Beards.
This is a masterpiece.
Paul Bart Mall Cop 1.
Well, how did you phrase it?
That's how.
All the letters were there. The order was just absolutely unsalvageable.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thanks again to Field Yates for joining the show. Thanks again to Hy-Vee for the beef giveaway. By the way, if you want another shot at that, if you did not get to be one of our lucky callers, we've also got one of those currently running on my Twitter account at JB Brisco and at Sports Radio 810 on Twitter there as well. Again, at Sports Radio 810. You can retweet it and enter for all that, and we'll give out some more beef. Meat for all here in the Zone. Again, Jason Anderson will be back on air with us tomorrow as the crew's headed out to Phoenix right now as we speak. We'll have a crazy lineup of guests just based on what we've already seen booked. I'll save all that for Jason once it's all set in stone tomorrow. Let him do the teasing on that front. But we'll have a lot of different people joining us throughout the rest of the week to look ahead to Super Bowl 57, which the Chiefs are playing in, by the way. Anybody mention that yet? Seems good. I have not been able to listen to any of Sean Payton's press conference, obviously, as it's going on right now, and we've kind of got an audio-based thing going on at the moment. We'll see how the press conference goes, but there were a couple of things from the entire Broncos saga on Friday that we didn't fully get to, and then Field had, I thought, a good take on it here just a little bit ago as well. So I want to dip back into the Broncos and Sean Payton for a second, largely because the steps along the way are very funny. And then I do think Field was right to say, look, I don't really care how you ended up with your guy as long as you ended up with the right one. Nick Sirianni wasn't a first choice. Frank Reich, I don't think, was a first choice back in Indy and went well before he got fired. There are a lot of examples of the number one pick amongst coaches not necessarily being the right choice or fallback options having a lot of success. Doug Peterson in Jacksonville was reportedly not the first option. I do not remember.
First option was Urban Meyer.
That's the truth, yeah. And then you have situations like Urban Meyer, Matt Rule, where it is the guy, where you win the press conference, you bring in the name and the face that's going to show that you're serious about rebuilding your culture.
John Gruden.
And then your culture goes that way. So look, I do think, and I thought it was funny that Field said this as well, because this is a realization that I've come to separately this year. Great minds and great hair thinks alike, really. But I'm not going to pop any party poppers for any head coaching hires unless the Colts hire Eric Bieniemy, just because I think he's more than earned his spot. But I am not going to fall out of my... breaking news from Beards McFly.
From Field Yates. Didn't tell us about this last segment. Well, actually, this isn't even his. Tom Brady tells Colin Cowherd that he'll begin his role as a broadcaster with Fox during the 2024 NFL season. He just won't go away.
That's kind of interesting, though. I actually saw that tweet from somebody else a little bit earlier. I credit to Field because he's our guy. But when I saw it the first time, until you said it just then, I was just sort of assuming that meant next football season. But that means Brady's going to take a full year off, and then what that really means is that he told Colin Cowherd to ask me again in a year, is what I think that really means. Good for him, though, man. Hey, do you know what I don't get? Speaking of Matt Rule, if you are outrageously wealthy, and in Matt Rule's case, getting paid actively to not work, get on that Cliff Kingsbury plan, get a one-way ticket to Thailand, and holler back in 6 months. Now, there's been some stuff about Brady wanting to spend more time with his kids and all of that. Do that. Go. Yeah, that's cool, man. Go reintroduce yourself to your family.
Take some underwear pictures on your bed.
I also saw that was happening, but I didn't really get I didn't blow it up and try to assess every pixel. Is he selling the Brady brand underwear? Is that what it is?
So I think what the deal was...
All right, I'm going to go look at it while you explain it.
I think what the deal was, he had tweeted a couple of years ago about, like, if that tweet hits 40,000 likes, I'll recreate these photos, and it was like a retweet of some underwear model thing.
Yeah.
So somebody re-tagged him in that recently. It was like, hey, where's the payoff? So he did it this morning, and then Tyreek Hill tweeted that since retirement, he's become closer to Antonio Brown.
He immediately, in the follow-up tweet to this new one, he immediately did post a link to the Brady brand boxer briefs. So you definitely can go buy these exact undies now. And there is a...
Do they come with like $5 million in cash inside?
In the bulge?
Sure.
Yeah, they're only $20. You can get 5 for $85.
It was the Brady brand that tweeted back him and said, hey, we haven't forgotten about this.
In the photo, Brady's got his throwing hand on, I don't want to presume anything about the level of inflation or deflation, but it's strategically placed, which makes me think that the Brady boxer briefs might not necessarily be the best for preserving your modesty. So I appreciate Brady's, little self-edit there. I said little self-edit. That wasn't, I don't know how much editing was being done there. Keeping it PG-13 for the timeline. This was going to be me talking about Sean Payton.
You still can.
Now we're talking about Tom Brady.
In his underwear.
And deflated things. There's just one real specific word that I'm just kind of tiptoeing around. That's twice today I've stopped myself from making a joke that probably should have just let it fly. Speaking of getting soft in your older age. I want to. Here's the thing with the. Stop laughing, Beards. Turn your mic off. I can't. If I hear you snickering in the background, I'm not going to be able to go back to talking about Sean Payton. Whoa! Breaking news, Beards. Sean Payton just posted a picture of himself just in his boxers. Just full-length mirror, just Hanes boxers. Seems unnecessary. All right, that one was a lie.
Good segue.
Thanks. So I do think that Field is on to something when he says, look, the order of operations on this doesn't really mean much once the coach gets hired, as long as you have the right guy. I absolutely agree with that. And I don't blame the Broncos for wanting to check out of all their options, including ones that wouldn't cost you a first-round draft pick. Like, that is a legitimate cost. If you get the right head coach, what does it mean? Nothing. I asked this last week, but what would you have retroactively given up for Andy Reid to be the head coach of the Chiefs? And I would say I would rather the Chiefs have not had their own first-round pick every single year of the Andy Reid era, except for 2017 and I guess 18 when they needed that pick to go get Patrick Mahomes. But if you said, hey, all the first-round picks except for your Mahomes ones, all the rest of those picks go straight to the Eagles because you got Andy Reid.
We're keeping the 2020 pick.
We could trade that one too.
You sure?
I'm confident. But like, if you think about it in those terms at all, and again, that's with the benefit of hindsight, getting the right head coach is way more valuable than a first-round draft pick. Now, getting the right head coach isn't as easy as that, and a first-round draft pick doesn't guarantee you that it's going to suddenly make that guy the right head coach. But I get it. Again, going back to like, hey, not freaking out about every first-time head coach hire that gets made. Like, I kind of like the Frank Reich move because we've seen him be a good head coach before. I'm finding myself much more generous to the quote-unquote retreads because I do think there's something to just like learning what it means to be a head coach and just hiring the best coordinator. I don't want to bleep talk Lou Anarumo at all. In fact, I would love for him to go be a head coach in the NFC somewhere. It would make our 1 week of our years maybe 2 weeks of our years a little less stressful pretty frequently. He's the Bengals defensive coordinator, if anybody hadn't learned his name recently. But I don't know that Lou Anarumo is going to be a good head coach. And frankly, I don't know that Eric Bieniemy is going to be a good head coach, or Mike Kafka, or whoever. And frankly, I think Matt Nagy will be a better head coach his next time through than he was his first time through.
Also, because he'll probably have a better quarterback than Mitch Trubisky.
Probably also the case. Who he got to the playoffs with?
He did.
Coach of the year, Matt Nagy.
He did.
But yeah, I don't think that's...
defense.
Yeah, I don't think it's an unreasonable thing at all to say, like, hey, how many times in your first job were you the best at it, in that role, your first time in this role, how often were you the best at it than that you were ever? Or did you ever do that job for a little while and then get better at it as you went? Maybe not better enough to keep you from getting fired, but you learned a lot from that. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing. So all of that to say, I understand saying first-round pick for Sean Payton, bleep it. Absolutely. It does feel a little bit like digging another level deeper, hoping you're going to hit oil if you're the Broncos, where it's like, hey, man, you're just like 6 yards down a sandbox right now. There is no oil to be found here. And maybe that's the case. But I get it, because who was the face of the Broncos franchise a week ago? It's Russell Wilson. At the moment they traded for Russell Wilson, that was Russell Wilson's franchise. Broncos country, let's ride. That was his team the moment he got there. Nathaniel Hackett was the head coach of Russell Wilson's team. And now, you give up Bradley Chubb and a future second, third round pick swap for it to be Sean Payton's team, who Russell Wilson is the quarterback of? Yeah, I get it. I really, really do. On the other side, I wonder if this is actually going to be actively beneficial to Russell Wilson. Is he going to be able to adopt the style of play that lets him see a late career renaissance like Drew Brees had? Or are we just saying, hey, we only really remember Sean Payton with one quarterback. He was pretty darn good, being Drew Brees. This guy's also old. Maybe that'll work. And I don't know. I don't know how that marriage is going to gel. I don't know when the Broncos actually see their best era of Sean Payton beginning. Do they think that started today? Do they think that starts in 2 years or 3 years when they're able to get away from Russell Wilson's contract? When does the rebuild actually begin? Or, even with all those picks devoted to Russ and to Payton, do the Broncos think they're contenders now because they got the head coach right and they got it so wrong the last time? Or is this more about Russ and the rest of the roster? That's all serious analysis. I would like to now go to the meta-analysis. Because these two tweets from Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter, two guys who know a lot of things about what's going on in the NFL world. I asked Field about it, and he gave a good end result sort of answer. But I want you to hear what Rappaport and Schefter said as the hire was going down to land Sean Payton. I know we're like a week out from this, but I think it's interesting. So Ian Rappaport tweets, unbelievable. The Broncos spent today trying to hire DeMeco Ryans again today before he recommitted to the Texans, sources say. When he agreed to terms with the Texans, they moved and finalized Sean Payton. The Broncos last few weeks zeroed in on DeMeco Ryans, secretly tried to lure Jim Harbaugh from Michigan, negotiated a Sean Payton deal, tried to hire Ryans again, finalized the hire of Payton as their new coach. Feels a little bit like paying a premium for your third choice. Now, again, he could have been the third choice because he was the only one that cost a premium. DeMeco Ryans and Jim Harbaugh weren't going to cost you any draft picks. If that was their ranking and they ended up on their third option, that's fine. I think it's funny for Chiefs fans because you get to say for as long as Sean Payton is there, hey, man, it's great that you got that guy who won a Super Bowl a really long time ago, your third choice. It's kind of funny trash talk. But what did Adam Schefter say that's so interesting to me? Thanks for asking. Timing of today's two hires was completely coincidental. Broncos were zeroed in on Sean Payton and didn't make any contact this week with DeMeco Ryans or his agent. Denver was focused on Payton and Houston on Ryans. Those are two pretty different stories being told about the same deal. Which is why I would just love to take you back to March 8th.
Why March 8th?
Thank you, Beards. Adam Schefter tweets, Denver acquiring Russell Wilson has nothing to do with the Aaron Rodgers decision to return to Green Bay. Denver general manager George Paton initiated trade talks with Seattle for Wilson at least 2 weeks ago, per sources. And this is just a little, like, media reporting literacy 101 kind of stuff to take you into the offseason. If you follow the breadcrumbs and you ask yourself who benefits from this being out there, you're pretty likely to find the source of where the information's coming from. Now, I mean, sometimes it's innocuous, right? It's just an update or whatever. But when you have two insiders getting very different intel, or at least choosing to go with very different intel, there are competing narratives there. I think those two tweets from Schefter indicate pretty strongly that people within the Broncos organization prefer to talk to Shefty. Hey, no, we weren't worried. We weren't trying to get Aaron Rodgers or DeMeco Ryans like a year later. No. We loved Russell Wilson and Sean Payton the whole time. What's the issue here? Meanwhile, Rappaport lays out a timeline for you. And again, look, I think the Broncos made a very reasonable choice in hiring Sean Payton. Think it could be the best thing for them long term. Don't know what it's going to do for them in the short term. Is there a better chance the Broncos get a game from the Chiefs this year than they did last year? Sure. Is there a better chance they end the streak next year with Sean Payton as their head coach than they would have with another year Nathaniel Hackett? Sure. Better chance they would have with DeMeco Ryans? No idea. Jim Harbaugh? No idea. Also, when they made that Russ trade last year, even I, disbeliever of disbelievers, even I'm pretty sure I started kind of mentally penciling in the idea that the Broncos would get the Chiefs once. Maybe they get you in Denver this time. So, I don't mind just quoting one Patrick Mahomes and telling you that I will believe it when I see it on anybody in the AFC West, really. I'm the most bullish on the Chargers, certainly. But I don't need to believe that the Broncos have now been solved. That they got the right architect in and now everything's going to work out just fine. I don't think that's what's happening here. But I thought the process of how they arrived to this point was, if nothing else, kind of funny. I don't think it's embarrassing that they could have, air quotes here, settled on Sean Payton. You could do a lot worse than that. I think it's largely going to be looked at as a good hire, despite the fact that, as Jason laid out last week, he's got a very similar career arc to Mike McCarthy. And if the Broncos hired Mike McCarthy, would we be shaken? No. But I do think Sean Payton's a good coach. Got out of the game for a breath, hopping back in again. I bet he'll get more out of Russell Wilson than Nathaniel Hackett did. Maybe there's a wake-up call kind of thing for Russ. Go, no, I just got my head coach fired because I was terrible. Maybe I can work with this guy who made Drew Brees a little better. But right now on SportsCenter, it shows, Sean Payton introduces Broncos head coach and then won NFL Coach of the Year in 2006. We are going 15 years into the archives to put the hardware up there. Now it's with Payton as head coach. Saints led NFL in passing 5 times. I mean, Drew Brees led the NFL in passing 5 times, right? Were any of those like a team effort? Did Jameis ever hop in and do that? I'm not sure. You paint the narrative however you want to. You can build your way forward, backward, from the middle on the way out. You can decide what you believe and then find your logic for it in here somewhere. Certainly. But I understand why they made the moves they did. While I also have absolutely nothing that implores me to believe that the Broncos' rejuvenation is coming. That's more or less where I've landed. And I think it's funny when there's NFL insider beef. Speaking of beef, we gave all this away already. Just another segue to make Beards wonder if he was going to have to take a bunch more calls. All right, well, we can take a break, I guess. Beards, how you feeling over there?
I'm okay.
We're at the about at the 3/4 mark. Not quite in a quarter 4 here.
2/3.
No Jason yet. Yeah, we've hit the 2/3 mark. A lot of great hair on the guest list today with Kent Swanson into Field Yates. Mick Shaffer's got TV hair ready to go. I mean, he's got good hair, but he's not committed to the voluptuosity. Is that a word? Voluptuousness.
Volume.
Kent and Field have voluptuous hair.
Sure.
I don't know how you adjectivize voluptuous. You feeling good, though? You feel like so far without Jason here? Like this, I'm just doing a little check-in to kind of figure out. We're in a break right now, right? No one can hear this?
Yeah, we're good. We're fine.
You feel like it's going pretty well? I mean, Field was having a good time. He might have just been being nice, and then Kent was being nice, and then he got mean, and that hurt my feelings.
That's the Kent experience, though.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I should have been ready for that. Do you think when Mick joins us at 1, do you think he's going to go...
Mick will be mean.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm going to start with Mick with a compliment. Did you see the live shot that he did?
No.
On the moving walkway at the airport?
No.
He was on the moving walkway, facing backwards, looking at the camera. An incredible establishing shot. And so I was thinking that I would be like, hey, Mick, thanks for joining us even though Jason's not here. I know you typically won't talk to me unless the mics are on and the cameras are rolling. Mick's very standoffish, more like Sunday standoff. Mick's very standoffish in person. But I thought, hey, maybe I soften the open with that, Love that live shot, and then maybe he won't go straight for the venom. I'm just really concerned about how Kent, Field, and Mick all feel about me. But I'm comfortable admitting that to you, Beards, because I know we're in a break.
So, I just realized something.
Oh, yeah?
The little light here by mic 1, which is your mic.
Yeah, sure.
It says on.
Yeah, and I don't like it when you do that because I do know, obviously you have it potted down because there are 2 ways you can adjust it. You can have the mic off or you can have it potted down.
No.
And sometimes you just pot it down and it leaves the on-air light on, and that makes me mad.
The volume's kind of, up on that.
Is it out of programming or something? Did you route it so you could hear me?
No, I think it's just on.
Well, at least commercials have been playing this whole time, right?
Hey, Josh?
Yeah, Beards.
They're not playing.
Gosh dang it, they should be.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. You're in the zone.
Little kids get a once-in-a-lifetime chance to play on the ice during intermissions of NHL games, and it's adorable. Last night, one of those kids decided to go rogue and use his time in the spotlight to blank. Beards, what's your best guess?
Poop on the ice.
I now will add the end of this sentence, which is to blank twice.
With Jason Anderson.
Take one more guess from you. This kid used his time in the spotlight to blank twice.
I mean, poop on the ice still fits there.
Sorry, we were looking for fight gritty.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Look, I mentioned earlier that I think it's incredible. We've made it this far into Super Bowl week. Or through the first of 2 Super Bowl weeks. Now we're here in the real one. I think it's amazing that we've made it this long and there's been no real Kansas City, Philadelphia trash talk. Maybe also, unlike Kansas City and Cincinnati, we just both have a healthy respect for what the other city has done in the food scene. Because I certainly do. But I will say, I will amend it now. I think this is fair. I don't think this is too strong. I think if any Kansas Citian sees Gritty this week, it's on sight. Do not let a big, furry, orange monster walk in front of my line of vision. And I'm not talking about beards. I was hoping would turn his mic on before I made that joke and just absolutely refused.
I was looking at the text from Mick.
Oh, did Mick text back?
He did. He said, gotcha.
He has no idea what time it is. He doesn't even know what day it is. He just tweeted a picture from sporting training. And I was like, where the hell is he? Oh, yeah, that's also out in Arizona.
We're just baseball would be out there.
But seriously, we're just picking up shop and just moving Kansas City to Arizona. You know what? Honestly, I'm worried Mick might not come back.
Here's where our trash talk starts between Kansas City and Philadelphia.
Hit me.
VF is epic on Twitch. Slugger could take Gritty one-on-one.
Ooh. Does Slugger get the bat? That seems unfair. Did he get a bat and sticks? Or are we going just
take off the crown and beat him with it? Show him who's boss.
If they're both going at it, we're going to let them keep their jerseys for just sort of all of our sakes. Boy, I think Slugger's got Gritty. I think I agree that Slugger wins that one 1v1. KC Wolf wipes the floor with Gritty. Although,
what hula hoops over him.
If Gritty gets to tag team in the Fanatic, now we got a 2v2. Put that on pay-per-view. Mick Shaffer next.
Now on Sports Radio 810 Sports Center.
This Sports Center is brought to you by Pajamagram, a Valentine's Day gift that's more alluring than lingerie. Naturally nude pajamas by Pajamagram. Sensuous and soft, they look just as seductive as they feel. Order naturally nude pajamas today at pajamagram.com. The Chiefs had some roster news today as wide receiver McCole Hardman's season is officially over. He's been placed on the injured reserve list. But running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire is making his return. He's been activated off IR, although there's no clear sign just yet as to what the Chiefs may plan to do with their backfield in the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, it was a rough weekend in college basketball. All three local teams losing, but KU and Texas tonight will be a huge one in the Big 12. Coverage begins at 6:30 right here on your home for the Jayhawks, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Coming up next, Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 live from Arizona. That's next in the zone. This is Sports Center.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
No, I get it, guys. Yeah, I got a long, stupid, sometimes fat face with a dumb nose. Yeah, I get it.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
His words, not ours. TV's own Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 joining the zone now from Arizona. Jason Anderson's on his way to Phoenix right now. So Radio Row shows begin tomorrow, but I'm Joshua Brisco with Beards McFly in here in studio right now. Mick, how's the desert treating you so far?
What's up, fellas? It's great so far. Just needs to get on down here. He's missed out on a lot already.
The thing that I saw already out of Super Bowl Media Week that's frankly maybe bigger than the game is I was going to call it a walk and talk that you pulled off, but your feet weren't moving. Could you just take us behind the scenes as one of the world's great directors and producers of television as to how you pulled that one off?
Well, listen, I had help from my photographer here, photojournalist Matt Klein from KSHB 41. We landed at like 8:30 Mountain, which is like 9:30 Central, right? So turned them really quick. So we didn't have time to get bags. And while we're 41 jacket, and we're like, it'd be funny to do on the walkway. So we did one where he was facing backward and shooting at me, but we were worried he was about to get to the carpet, right? And he couldn't see it. And we were going to trip, and there's going to be a horrible thing, and the camera was going to be broke, his neck was going to be broke. We saw the future there. Yeah. So once we got to the next walkway, Phoenix, by the way, is such a big city, huge airport. Takes forever to get around anywhere. And so a lot of those walkways. So he had me face backwards, which I think was better cinematically. Mm-hmm. And, really...
The conversation that started for us late last hour, that again also a matchup I think you're probably really equipped to help us preview, is who do you think would win in a fight between Slugger and Gritty? And then what happens if it's Slugger and KC Wolf going up against Gritty and the Philly Fanatic as a tag team?
Slugger is cut.
Yeah.
He would destroy both those guys.
Okay.
Slugger is destroyed. Those other two are really bottom heavy. Slugger would dominate, and he's got the hair, which, as we know, read our Bible, provides more strength even, and a pointy crown. If things get dirty, and look, they do in fights, but everything's legal, he's got that as a weapon as well.
Yeah, the rare lion with horns, I suppose, is really excellent. All right, I support that logic. I'm glad to hear you on the right side of history there. Although I wish your phone line was on a better side of history. Beard just motioned it like, hey, maybe we call him back. Mick, stay right there for a second. You just stand there and smile at the camera. Beard's going to call you back here in one quick second. Look, you fly across the country, you make some TV magic. Sometimes you get there and your phone line's not perfect. I mean, such is life. We'll get Mick back momentarily. I also need to tweet out that poll question. But that so far the results have been like, look, Slugger's got guns, not literal but figurative, and I think that is a good point. I'm just worried that Gritty and the Fanatic are both they'll drink your blood. You know what I mean? There's some crazy in that fight that sort of concerns me.
I do have a question here from Twitch really quickly.
Please, yeah.
This might be, they say it's something to ask the media. Does the Eagle mascot feel slighted by the attention the other Phillies mascots get?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mick. What has your reporting shown so far? Is the Eagles mascot feeling slighted because the other crazier ones get more attention? That's a good sign. That's it. These are all really good. Huh, do you think Mick can hear us right now?
I'm trying to.
Hey, all right, good. Well, that seems like we're probably on the right track. Is this bad still on your side? We can just figure this out as we're here. You can text me your Learn Funniest Best.
It's a little. He has free Wi-Fi throughout the entire downtown for anybody. So
I heard.
I mean, I am in the desert, but it is a civilized, developed part of the desert.
Yeah, are you sure? There aren't just like camels walking around. I don't think camels are native to Arizona. I think that's a
Camelback Mountain.
Camelback. Yeah, that's true.
Camelback is.
Well, we got right now. This sounds like there's a phone line holding, so we'll just take it for as long as we can, and then we'll set you free back out there on Radio Row. Has there been anything so far that you have observed in the first first few hours, the Chiefs arriving out there and everything? Any observations as only TV's Mick Shaffer on the ground can report back with?
The arrival was great yesterday. I always enjoy that, and I was telling everybody that hadn't been to a Super Bowl, the arrival is just a huge party. There's going to be a band, there's a DJ, there's a huge food spread. We had lobster one time in Miami or Tampa or whatever, and then we approached the arrival yesterday. It wasn't at the airport. It was at a Air Force base, an Air National Guard base next to the airport. I was like, you know what? I don't think the Air National Guard's going to have dancing girls. They probably are. And sure enough, they had chips and water for us, and that was it. So it was a little different theme than in years past, but it was still a great time. They take care of you there. It was cool talking to the National Guardsmen. We interviewed a couple of them from Kansas City, big Chiefs fans, all that, and just seeing the teams arrive. And I guess my biggest observation was, you had the Chiefs, you had the Eagles. First of all, in their somebody called it a Squid Game outfit they were all wearing, and it reminded me of the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl after the 2019 season. They're all wearing their Andy Reid Hawaiian shirts, but this time they were all wearing their own deal and were more business-like. And I feel like maybe it's for them. There is an edge, in that they realize what this trip's about. It's not about. Look, they won that game in Miami, right? So there's probably not one way or another better, but. That was my take, is that the Chiefs are kind of business-like, and the Eagles, who can blame them, only, 8 of them have been to a Super Bowl before, or treated that arrival like kind of maybe a bigger event than it needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, is that something you're expecting to see as a theme now? I mean, for a lot of these guys, not a ton of these Chiefs. There are plenty of first-timers and plenty of second-timers, but for at least, the core leadership group or whatever in the locker room, this is Super Bowl number 3. Is that going to be a theme you're looking for then, just in terms of, we've been here before, we know what it takes to be locked in?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's 22, I think, that have Super Bowl experience. That's huge in this day and age, in that sport, in that league, in the NFL. I mean, outside of the Patriots basically every other year of the teens going to the Super Bowl, it's going to be hard to find teams that much experience with all the turnover you have. So I think that's going to be a big factor. And look, Tampa was a weird Super Bowl. I think they got there Wednesday or Thursday. It was late, maybe even later. I can't remember. Might have been the day before the game. And so, these coaches, Andy Reid hates all this, right? but they want their schedule. They want their Mondays to be like every other Monday before that. They're at least going to get a quote-unquote normal Super Bowl routine this time around, and it's something that Andy Reid and a lot of those guys know.
I don't know if you saw, if you were busy traveling at the time, but have you been tempted at all to spend anywhere between $375 and $4,000 on eBay for sand from where Tom Brady announced his retirement?
I've seen it. I've not been tempted by it, and anymore I'm just not shocked that that's a thing. And that somebody's going to get a lot of money for it. I mean, I could probably fake it. I could go out in the desert and get sand here and just kind of Photoshop the pic in front of where he was, and I probably would get some idiot to pay me money, and I'd be totally fine with that.
Is there a purchase? It doesn't have to be sports specific, but some sort of memorabilia purchase like that you've made in your life, not where you got just flatly scammed by someone lying on eBay, but just where you spent a little more for a weird trinket than you probably should have?
No, I don't think so. I'm cheap to begin with, and I'm you would think I'd be a sports memorabilia guy, but I'm only a few specific things that I keep, and it's less buying it, more experiencing. Yeah. So no, I have a piece of the net from the 2008 Final Four.
That's great.
Which people don't believe it's real, and so I could I could probably sell that at some point, and some Jayhawk is going to pay me thousands of dollars for it. So I got that in the chamber, I guess.
How'd you finagle your way to that? That feels like something you're not supposed to be
story.
allowed to do.
Have I not? I told you? Well, if we're on the floor, KU wins, and Bill's still holding court on the floor, and so Kansas City's a friendly market, right? And I have my microphone up there. Well, one of the other reporters who's closer to him grabs it to hold it for me. I'm like, oh, it's great. So I can't hear what he's saying. So I'm just kind of wandering around as he's doing an interview. And I noticed there are 3 pieces of net still tied to the little hooks around the rim, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, that'd be really cool to have one of those because they are cut them all down and everything. So I jump up, and believe it or not, wasn't able to grab it.
Yeah.
I was able to touch it. I blame it on my loafers, right? Is that
sure.
Shoes, dress shoes? And so, and they're real tightly wound on there too. And so I'm like, well, that's weird. And so like a guy in a suit, like I think he worked for the Alamo Dome, came over, younger kid, younger than me, and he was really tall, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, no, I was just trying to get some of the net. I was going to give it to the team in the locker room, and I was lying to him, and he's like, "Oh, I thought you were trying to get it for yourself." I'm like, no, today. Like, it would kind of be cool to keep a piece, right? I'm like, yes, it would. I'm lying to you. I would really like that. He's like, so would I. So he whistles. He's like 6'6". His buddy, who's also in the same suit. I mean, I think he's worked for the stadium as well. He's like 5'6". And so the 6'6" guy in a suit pushes the 5'6" guy in a suit on his shoulders.
Wow.
Remember, there's 3 pieces of net, and he gets up there and he unties all 3. And we all 3 grab one, and we beeline it out in our separate ways.
Perfect.
And I got a piece of the net.
That's perfect. That's exactly where I wanted that story to end, which is the 3 of you just sharing a moment and a life pact of saying, look, we all know this isn't what we're supposed to be doing right now, but all 3 of us would like to be able to have this story forever. And you just took the story and the net. That's beautiful.
And it pays to lie, and tell the truth, because I did both, and the lie, then the truth. Got it.
See, but then you got to all lie and tell the truth together. I mean, that's just 3 dudes being dudes.
Well, and I've got dirt from the field in Miami. There's Mad Dog Russo. I just passed him. He's probably going to a radio row.
Supposed to be on with us this week.
Yeah. Should I yell at him? He'll yell back, probably, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just yell the most outlandish thing you can about old timey basketball. Quick, Beards, give Mick something he can say about Havlicek.
He was very good.
Just yell Havlicek at Mad Dog Russo, and I bet he'll smile.
Havlicek. He was so much better than Jordan and LeBron.
You accidentally got us to college basketball, and I don't know. Again, you've been like traveling and it's Super Bowl mode and all of that, but we have not spent a second on any of the college ball today, which I thought might be just like an agreement that all the fan bases could come to, which is to say, hey, look, you don't talk about our loss, we won't talk about your loss, you don't talk about their loss, everybody's happy, but now you're here and nobody's happy. Any of those losses do anything for you to move the needle, or is it just kind of the Big 12 being the Big 12 and Mizzou getting Mizzou'd a little?
I mean, look, K-State really had an opportunity, right, with 11-point lead. I don't know what it eventually got up to overall. Had a real opportunity to beat what, I don't know, probably the most skilled team, or at least one of the most skilled teams, and obviously the team leading the Big 12. At home, right, you have a missed opportunity. KU, I mean, they're in quote-unquote trouble. Not to, tournament or anything, but to not win the Big 12. I mean, and they have, 2 games left with Texas, and so those are going to be huge. But, I mean, just this KU team and its iteration of Jalen Wilson scoring a ton of points and Grady Dick not being dialed in like he was the first half of his freshman season, and an undersized big that other teams, I don't know if they're going to figure him out, but, I mean, KJ Adams, he's had a great season, right? But there's going to be limitations, especially some of the teams they play. So that was my takeaways there. Who did Mizzou lose to?
Mississippi State.
Yes, I was traveling. We were coming down.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I don't know. I mean, Mississippi State seems to just own Mizzou. They just beat them.
It's on the road, too.
Basketball. It's on the road. And I know Ole Miss is bad. Mississippi State's better. But, they'll be fine. Those are my 3 takes.
I think those are the appropriate 3 takes, and that lets us have talked about college basketball at least a little bit, and now we can do Learn Funniest Best. I don't remember what order this usually goes in because I'm never in charge of it, But here I am now. Beards, do you know who goes first? Mick, you might have actually. You've been doing this the longest out of the three of us.
Usually Jason goes first. Then it would be you, then Mick, then me, and then it will rotate.
Do you want to just really mix it up this time, Beards? And you just go. We get Beards' learn funniest best all three in a row, back to back. Probably not.
Nah.
Beards, what did you learn this week?
I learned that in his tenure as a Brooklyn Net for all 4 years, Kyrie Irving never played 12 games in a row for them. He wears number 11.
Wow. That's pretty good, Beards. Mick, what have you learned over the course of your Super Bowl traveling weekend?
I haven't checked it, but a Phoenix native said this last night. You guys might have said it because it's such a great stat. Whoever wins the Super Bowl on Sunday will have as many wins as the Cardinals did in that stadium this year.
Wow.
2.
What?
Because both the Eagles and the Chiefs have won there.
That is incredible.
Right?
Wow, what a great stat. Okay, mine's not a stat, but mine is just something I legitimately learned this morning. Seeing that in MLB The Show 23, there's going to be a Negro Leagues storyline game mode that you can play through. And the first second that I saw it, I was like, okay, how are they going to navigate this? What's this going to look like? And then the first voice you hear in the trailer that they put out this morning, Bob bleeping Kendrick. And he walks you through the whole sort of 3-minute story of the Negro Leagues, and then you're seeing guys like Buck O'Neil in an animated form to be able to actually, play as in the game. My very first thought was like, again, all right, how are we gonna do this? And then after I heard Bob talking about it and started seeing some of the cutscenes and stuff in there, it's gonna bring some of that era of baseball alive in a way that it literally never has been before. So that's what I learned this morning, and I think it's going to be pretty awesome. I forget I also have to flip to the next. Let's just keep the same order going. There's nothing wrong with that. Beards, What was your funniest?
My funniest was in the 4 seasons with Kyrie Irving, the Nets had a higher winning percentage every season when he did not play with the team.
Good Lord. I'm sensing a theme from Beards' LFB, and it's LFG away from Kyrie Irving. Mick, what was your funniest?
My funniest, so we interviewed Nick Lowry last night. He lives in Scottsdale. Chiefs all-time leading scorer, right? Mm-hmm. And he watched Harrison Butker, live out every kicker's dream, right? Sending his team to a Super Bowl with the kick. So that's going to be kind of the theme of the story. And he's a huge Harrison Butker fan. I didn't know his relationship with Lynn Elliott. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I was thinking it the whole time. And he might love him. They might be buddies, and said he got a raw deal. I don't know. But the very first question I asked of Nick last night was about Harrison Butker, and sure enough, his very first part of his first answer was, "Man, unlike 1995, isn't it nice to have somebody to rely on?" So he came out like it's swinging there. So I thought it was pretty funny. He just kind of went there.
Wow. It's good to know if you could just keep kind of figuring out where the Chiefs kicker beef and like where the Chiefs kicker allies are, and just really kind of figure out where the allegiances may be. Who thinks he got a raw deal and who thinks that his name is a curse word. That is brutal. Is that coming on 41 sometime this week, or was that?
It is. It'll be on this afternoon on the 5 and the 6 o'clock shows. It's funny. I didn't know he does a show with Sterling on 810.
Yes.
I apparently don't listen at that time of day, or maybe ever.
Yeah, that's all right. Nobody currently talking to you is going to try to guilt you into not listening to the night show. We get it.
Right. So yeah, that was funny.
My funniest, I just alluded to, but there's a real specific part of it that just makes me very happy. As I was scrolling through eBay, looking at all of the Tom Brady's exact retirement spot, bottled sand day of retirement.
There's some price variance in some of those.
There certainly is. One of them reaches $75,000 or best offer with 0 bids. Some of them have an authenticity guarantee that I would really be curious in testing. But there was one of them that said, Tom Brady, exact retirement spot, bottled sand, 1 of 1, real. Tom kissed this sand. And there is a description in this one that says, read description, serious. It reads, guys, I actually live in Florida, all caps, and have family there. My account is based in another state, but I can get the actual sand. I'm not lying at all. eBay will authenticate it and will be proven to be from that beach in Tampa. fast shipping as well. I have the sand. I picked some up while in Florida this weekend, just ready to ship, fast shipping. Now, this is my funniest because this guy lives in Florida and his family's in Florida, and he was in Florida for the weekend. And he's in a different state, but he's in Florida, and he's not lying at all. And all that sand can be yours for the low, low price of like $10,000 on eBay.
He sounds like a real straight shooter.
It really seems to me like this guy is not lying, comma, at all.
Not at all.
Not lying, comma, at all. Mick, what was your, Beards, what was your best Kyrie Irving thing of the weekend?
It's this quote from New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who was asked if he would trade Kyrie. He said, quote, "I will find the team that beats us the most and send him to that team because then we'd start beating that team." I have a news, though, for the mayor. The Boston Celtics already had that experience. We're good.
Eric Adams also does not know ball. We have plenty of evidence of that, I think. Mick, what was your best?
My best from the weekend was we got to have In-N-Out Burger, our first meal, and it was good. We asked them because they were in In-N-Out Burger kind of like trucker caps, like can we get one of your hats? Do you sell those hats? And they came back and they actually gave us one of those paper little chef's hats, and we're like, well, we were talking about that hat, but online you can buy the In-N-Out hat. So the next morning on my live shot, I was wearing shades and a In-N-Out chef's hat on live television. So, I mean, I don't know how that's not everybody's best.
You break the barriers of acceptable television on a daily, if not weekly basis, and man, it's just it's beautiful to watch. Can I get a quick power ranking of regional burger chains for you? Like if you're gonna go your In-N-Out, Shake Shack, whatever makes your list. Yeah, I'd love a power ranking from you.
Here's the deal. I mean, like, I hate because it's a big chain. I mean, like, Five Guys is awesome.
Yeah,
that might be my number one. And then Shake Shack, and then Whataburger, and then In-N-Out, or just put them in any other order. I'm fine with it. Or Sonic, or Winstead's, whatever. I'll eat any burger. I'm fine with it. It's a touchy subject. I don't want to get in trouble online. I posted it, and half the people responded, "Oh my God, so overrated. Are you kidding?" Put that in my mouth. It was like, "Oh my gosh, every other burger pales in comparison." I'm like, I'm just tweeting out a picture of it. I mean, we don't have to have like a just big debate where we get professionally offended on burgers. So yeah, whatever you want my list to be, it'll be.
I respect you for going Five Guys at the top because you're right. We have it here, so we're spoiled, but it's
right next to the station.
Yeah, it is. Beards and I both, I think, eventually had to make the rule that we could not go there for dinner before Almost Entirely Sports at night because there's just sort of a concrete kind of issue that happens.
It puts you in a food coma.
Yeah, where it's just it's delicious, but then it turns your insides into just one sort of block of carbohydrates and beef. And it's wonderful. Yeah, here's the thing. All burgers are good, guys.
I love a place where there's really no option for like small or medium fries. We're giving you a gym bag full of fries here, okay? You're going to take it.
You either get a backpack of fries or a duffel bag.
Take all these fries. We have the actual potatoes in bags sitting out there. You can look on them. We just have so many fries. You're going to take all these fries.
Speaking of that, and there is a burger place that I grew up by over in the Northlands, LC's Hamburgers. There's a small fry, and then there is the extra large fry, and that is their only thing. And I get the extra large every time. It's fantastic. This is free publicity because I've eaten there for basically 30 years. It's great.
Hey, LC's, let's make it not free publicity. Let's get Beards paid. Why don't we start shilling out Beards? My best is that I finally played a video game that I've been trying to play I've been told to play for years called What Remains of Edith Finch. Have I talked to you about this yet, Beards?
No.
Was that a game you played?
No.
Mick, was that a game you played? Didn't think so. It's excellent. It's like a 2-hour little trip. There's kind of a visual novel element to it, but there is really interesting gameplay kind of in each chapter while telling a really kind of, at times, harrowing tale, but it's got something to say with it. It's really fascinating. It's an excellent game. It's been out for a very long time, but I played it on Steam Deck, and it's if it's available on Switch and stuff, I think it should be. Again, it's like a couple hours on the playthrough. The story is stupendous, and the way they make you play the game in different ways from sort of chapter to chapter is really excellent. So that would have been a shot clock review, but I think we're going to be pretty busy around this time on Wednesday, and frankly for the remainder of Radio Row week. So that was my best. We did it. We did an LFB. Mick's phone worked out. We got to hear about the greatest establishing shot in TV history. I'm just hoping you'll go ahead and tweet out the In-N-Out hat shot as well, Mick, because this is the matchup that I care most about this week is you versus Arizona.
Well, I love it. It's a tight matchup. It's going to be a field goal game.
It's going to come down to the 3. Thank you, Mick. We'll imagine we'll hear from you, and Jason will see you down there pretty soon.
Yep, we'll do. We'll see you guys.
Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41, TV's Mick Shaffer, and a man just changing the form, truly. Moving backwards, wearing silly hats, being in the desert. Remember when he shoved a guy in Tampa? That was awesome. Put Mick on Radio Row. Actually, it'd be nice to get Mick touring around other stations. Like, hey, we've got sports director from KSHB 41 in Kansas City. Just let Mick loose on Radio Row. Can we make that happen? Can we facilitate that somehow? Say, hey, Mick, instead of spending that hour with us, will you just go specifically promote the zone around the country? So, Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 and
ESPN's
the zone.
doing like some live shot thing, and then just Mick runs in on the set. Hey, go watch the zone.
It's just
it's
Mick.
on their YouTube and Twitch page. And then it just runs off.
It's just Mick wearing the Brady brand underwear, and that's the whole idea. We'll take a break. Joshua Brisco and Beards McFly here with you in the zone. Jason, as I just referred to, Jason's out today because he's on his way to the desert to get ready for Super Bowl 57. Radio Row will start tomorrow morning, and we're going to be there for all of it. Plus, tonight, a big media night out there. I guess I could have asked Mick about that, but we got talking about burgers, and it's past lunchtime.
I want a burger.
I also want a burger. Beards, you want to go see if Curtis or Sarin or Adam want to just hop in these last 30 minutes and you and I can go get a bite to eat?
That works for me.
All right, let's check.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
So Ian has commented on the Almost Entirely Sports Facebook page. Didn't take Beards for a 2-sport athlete. Well, Ian, I was a 3-sport athlete. I did cross country for a year.
Yes! And then what happened, Beards?
I got hit by a car.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Really appreciate Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 for making some time for us while getting ready for Super Bowl week in Arizona. Mick Shaffer's appearances on The Zone are brought to you by our friends at Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon. God, I love this place.
We keep talking about food, and I just want more.
Oh, this is the food I want the most. Home of the 2-story biscuit sandwiches from Denver Biscuit Company all morning. Delicious. New York-style hand-tossed pizza all afternoon and evening from Fat Sully's. Unbelievable.
Pizza and biscuits. Both sound amazing.
And 20 beers on tap all the time. I've tried most of the menu. I don't think I've made it all the way through the beer menu, but I've tried a ton of the menu. You can get it right now and experience it today at 42nd and Pennsylvania in Westport. They've been on Food Network, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Man vs. Food. I did a remote from out there a while back. If you were listening during that show, you already know exactly how I feel about Atomic Cowboy.
I just remember having to, because you were like on video out at that remote as well.
I sure was.
And I just had to look up here at the TV every once in a while and just see you in the little corner of the box and just munching on some biscuit, and it was like, that looks tasty. I want some.
It's unreal. Listen, everybody. There are a lot of great ways you can do food. There are lots of I love food. This is going to shock a lot of people. Cooking and eating are like high on my list of hobbies that I enjoy. I enjoy a culinary experience very much. I have never experienced anything quite like Atomic Cowboy anywhere else. No exaggeration necessary. Not just the combination of everything, but the specifics of like how outrageous and also delicious the food is. It's shockingly good. So, Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon, Food Network, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Man vs. Food. Try it for yourself today at 42nd in Pennsylvania in Westport. And not only do I have to say, like, oh, you won't regret it. I look forward to you. Tweet me pictures. At JB Brisco, tweet me pictures of what you get at Atomic Cowboy. And then tell me how much you loved it. Because there's a zero risk debate going on there. You're going to love it. The pizza that I had there was incredible. Everything from Denver Biscuit Company, absolutely unreal. So I appreciate them for being on board with us, and again, appreciate Mick for joining us from Arizona as he's staying busy out there during this week. There are a handful of things. We got through a pretty good number of the like very serious sort of matchup previews that I wanted to do today, and make sure we kind of got through the groundwork of what this game might look like. Beards, do we still we got time here to play a couple of minutes from Sheil Kapadia on the Ringer NFL show?
Yeah, I guess so.
We can, right? Sheil talking a little bit about the Eagles' pass rush versus Patrick Mahomes. And look, I mean, he even admits later on in the podcast I was listening this morning that this isn't the most shocking key to a game ever, but I think it puts into context. So we've been talking all day today about how good this Eagles pass rush has been, led the NFL in sacks. Can the Chiefs offensive line win that battle at least enough to give Patrick Mahomes a chance? Here's Sheil Kapadia talking about the Eagles pass rush versus Mahomes.
This, to me, is the game. You look at the Eagles all season long. They've sacked opponents on 11.5% of their pass plays, the highest mark for any defense in the last 20 years. In the NFL, this pass rush has been historically good. And what's amazing about it is if you look at their numbers when they don't blitz, when they rush 4 or fewer, the sack rate actually goes up, which is, kind of unheard of, 11.8%. So we know they're not going to blitz a lot. This game, and some of those sacks that we've seen on film, are they coverage sacks? Absolutely. But you know what? Their film is littered with reps of Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Javon Hargrave winning their one-on-one battles. And I think that's what this game comes down to. I don't think you're going to confuse Mahomes. I don't think Mahomes is going to look up and say, oh, I wasn't expecting that coverage. Oh, I didn't think that guy was going to drop there. No, I think he's seen it all. I don't trust the Eagles to win that kind of chess match. I think they need to win up front. They need to win quickly. They need to win in high leverage situations. And most important of all, they need to finish. Because you know who is the hardest quarterback to finish sacks on in the NFL? It's not Lamar Jackson. It's not Josh Allen. It's not Jalen Hurts. it's Patrick Mahomes. I think maybe his most underrated trait is his awareness. I mean, you look at him even last week against the Bengals, he's getting pressured, but those are not resulting in negative plays. He was sacked at the third lowest rate of any starting quarterback this season. And one stat I looked up that I like, Pro Football Focus keeps, is pressure to sack rate, which means exactly.
I was just looking it up to make sure I knew the number in the event that you didn't say it.
Yeah, it means exactly what you think it means. How often does a pressure turn into a sack? For Patrick Mahomes, that number is just 10.5%, easily the lowest for any starting quarterback in the NFL. So just pressuring him, coaches, players, sometimes you hear them say, nah, sacks are overrated. You just got to move the quarterback off his spot. No. Not against this guy. That doesn't matter. You move him off the spot. Guess what he does? He climbs the pocket, he gets sandwiched, and he throws a dart to Marquez Valdez-Scantling in the middle of the end zone for a touchdown. He does that consistently. So I think this game will come down to the Eagles' pass rush and their ability to finish against Patrick Mahomes, because I like their matchups on the outside, at tackle, against Andrew Wiley, against Orlando Brown. Not saying those guys are bad players, but you give me Reddick, Graham, and Sweat against those players for an entire game, I think they're going to win their fair share of matchups. The question is, will those wins result in negative plays?
That dismount, to me, is the boiled down version of it. You can help Andrew Wiley, you can help Orlando Brown, you can hope they win some of their own one-on-ones, you can have Jerick McKinnon getting a lot of work in pass pro. He can help with all that. But ultimately, you're not expecting a perfect game from any of your tackles. You're not expecting a perfect game of pass protection. So the question is, what happens when the Eagles win those matchups? You hope that doesn't happen all that much, but what happens when the Eagles win those?
I'd appreciate it if they don't.
It'd be better for them just to say, we're going to go ahead and just drop 11. That would be, tell you what, it'd be different.
No, it's like the old Pro Bowl. We're gonna kind of try.
We're gonna, hey, look at us standing here, putting our hands on the other side of the trenches,
and then Trey Smith just pancakes 3 guys in a row.
Trey Smith just puts Isaiah Pacheco on his shoulders and just runs down the field, just sort of snatching bodies. But so
penalty, illegal formation.
That's probably true. That's probably a penalty of some sort. All right, he's Isaiah Pacheco is directly behind Trey Smith. You narc. But so what happens when Patrick Mahomes escapes the pocket, or what happens when he's flushed out, or what happens when something weird happens? I'm going back to this stat from right after the AFC Championship game because it blew my mind. You may or may not remember that Patrick Mahomes against the Jacksonville Jaguars suffered an ankle injury that he then was dealing with getting ready for the AFC Championship game. He's had 2 more weeks since then now between the end of the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. High ankle sprain. Generally a pretty noteworthy injury. The Next Gen Stats stat line here from the AFC Championship game, with 2 weeks less to heal on that ankle compared to what we'll see in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes completed every pass he threw from outside the tackle box, 6 for 6. Every pass he threw while on the run, 8 or more miles per hour, 6 for 6. And he completed every pass he threw when holding on to the football for longer than 4 seconds, 6 for 6. 18 for 18 in those 3 categories combined. And his completion percent over expected on those categories, all of them are outrageous. 31%, 20%, 23%. Meaning that he was completing passes that weren't supposed to be completed. And that was with a banged up, hobbled Mahomes, right? At least in theory. And I mean, look, we definitely saw his ankle affect him in that game. But I kind of think we just might not notice it as much this week. Maybe there's a rep or two, but he was moving a lot more nimbly in that game than even as a bit of an optimist I felt like I was expecting. I was ready for there to be a couple instances of it cutting him short, but then he was able to run for it when it really mattered. So if the Eagles flush Mahomes out, again, outside the box, on the run, or if they don't get there very quickly, maybe they don't rush as many and the Chiefs hold their own, in any and all of those circumstances, advantage offense. When outside the box, when on the run, when left to hold on to the ball in the pocket, or just drop back further than you'd expect. Those are all things that play in Mahomes' favor. And that's just not true for very many quarterbacks. So to see if the Eagles can get their quick pressure and finish it once it arrives is going to be absolutely vital for them. And if you're the Chiefs, hey, give Mahomes a second. And if you're Patrick Mahomes, a chance you have to be the Super Bowl MVP again and to put an exclamation point on your 2022-23 season is to take some of those moments, turn them into Super Bowl magic moments, legacy moments. And we obviously know Patrick Mahomes is completely comfortable with that. I think it's a fascinating way to look at it in terms of what the Eagles have to get done and how the Chiefs might be able to counter. But we'll talk a little bit maybe about something else around the Super Bowl, or maybe we'll find a different way to go ahead and finish out this edition of The Zone on the other side of our break. It's me, Joshua Brisco, and Beards McFly. Jason Anderson's on his way to Arizona. We'll have Radio Row Zone starting tomorrow. But in the meantime, a little more Zone before we hand it over to the program next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
All right, if you come back tomorrow, the show will be better, I promise.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
A fitting liner to start off the last segment of the show here. It's The Zone. It's Monday, but it's Joshua Brisco and Beards McFly. What happened to Jason? Jason will be back tomorrow because he's on the way to Radio Row. What was that face for, Beards? You might have had a joke.
No, I didn't make a face.
Thought you might have had a face. Maybe I can make you make a face. We've been saving this all show. And look, hey, real quick, everybody. We've got everything from today's show, as always, will be up on the podcast page shortly after the show's done. So if you miss anything, you can check out the Zone's podcast feed in the 810 WHB mobile app, 810WHB.com. In addition to watching the show live on all our various video feeds, you can always do that. Wherever you get your podcast, you can get all the hours you want. We've done a lot of Chiefs talk today. Good stuff with Kent Swanson, Field Yates, and Mick Shaffer.
And Burger Talk.
And some Burger Talk. And I do have a poll question up right now. Who wins a 2v2 street fight? Slugger and KC Wolf, Gritty and the Fanatic. Right now, 52% of votes are in on behalf of the KC duo. Most of the people in the responses, though, have been going to the Philly side. We can come back to that in a second. But Beards, how excited are you for the Boston Celtics to trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant? I'm a Suns fan. Beards is a Celtics fan. Kyrie Irving is a Maverick now. Kevin Durant. Yeah, hold on. Let's go ahead. Let me go into that one again. Kyrie Irving is a Maverick now.
And his first choice was the Lakers, but Josiah, the Nets owner, said, no, we're not sending you there. We're going to send you to Dallas instead.
And apparently the Suns were in the conversation, which is a fact I choose to ignore because they didn't make it happen. They were getting used for leverage or something, maybe. I don't know. Did they offer Chris Paul? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Sounds like they did. Interesting. But we've dodged that bullet. We dodged the Kyrie bullet as your team's already been there, and I did not want my team to go.
We're good. We're fine.
The difference, though, is that I would be okay if my team wanted to acquire Kevin Durant. I think that could be good for them. Why do you hate good players, Beards?
I like good players. Good players are very good. We have them already.
You don't want to trade Jaylen Brown for Kyrie? Or for Durant, sorry.
Oh, definitely not for Kyrie.
Definitely not for Kyrie. That was easy.
We're good on that one. We had this kind of discussion like in the summer a little bit with before
the first time
that Kevin Durant requested a trade.
Yeah.
Why mess with what's already good? And like Durant's had injury stuff in the past where he's not playing every game every year and seems kind of moody wherever he goes to a little bit. And like Celtics are good. They're really good. They might be the best team in the league. We don't need Kevin Durant. We're fine.
Look, the Suns are about to get Devin Booker back. I mean, we're coming back around, but this team makes me sad more often than not, and they still have Jay Crowder. So there's our difference. Our difference is your team is mostly making you happy this year. My team is mostly making me sad this year.
Every time the Celtics beat the Nets by like 40 or beat them in the playoffs, somebody requests a trade from the Nets.
That's true. That's how it works. That's absolutely how it works. But the moral of the story is this, and the one place where you and I can be on the same team for once, is that we are on team doesn't have to root for Kyrie Irving.
Yep.
Or, frankly, doesn't have to cease rooting for a team in spite of Kyrie Irving.
I think my favorite part about all of that whole thing is everybody has been clamoring for Dallas to get another guy.
Yeah, I know.
To take the weight
burden
off of Luka.
Yeah, sure.
And then they get Kyrie Irving, and everybody goes, well, hang on, not like this.
Hey,
not like this.
Not like this,
we weren't
Mark.
talking about that.
Mark, what are you doing? How is this your solution?
Also, like, are they going to give him a contract in the summer?
Great question, man. Great question.
Hey, Luka, we traded all this capital and, like, your favorite teammate, Dorian Finney-Smith, for Kyrie Irving. Oh, we're not going to sign him in this offseason. Let's see how that goes.
Look, Luka was always destined to wear purple and orange. He's going to join the super team. Luka joins Devin Booker and Kevin Durant in Phoenix. This is the path because Kyrie's going to burn down Dallas. Here are the mentions right now. So again, on Twitter, at JB Brisco, who wins in a 2v2 street fight, Slugger and KC Wolf or Gritty and the Fanatic? Our own Sterling Holmes says, you think Gritty's fighting fair? I'd say old Slugger was terrifying with the teeth, which would give KC an advantage. Brad Porter says, the most on-brand Brisco poll question ever. I'm not sure I understand that one. Gritty reminds me of one of those big barrel-looking guys you get hit with a bat and they'd say ow and then proceed to pummel you. Slugger and KC Wolf have too much honor. I think this is my favorite. Gritty would wipe the floor clean 1v3 against the others, then steal Mrs. Met's phone number from Slugger's phone. Now that brings a lot of questions about the nature of Slugger and Mrs. Met's relationship. I'm not sure. This poll is full of homers. Gritty is capable of unspeakable horrors. And the Fanatic tried to fight Tommy Lasorda. Look, man, Philly's different. We got a whole week, though, to work up to it. Jason's back tomorrow. It's The Zone on Sports Radio 810. Bye, Mom.